"Sir, you can't stand there. You're blocking priority boarding." The flight attendant's smile was sharp enough to cut. Pale lipstick, crisp bun, name tag glinting under the fluorescent lights. Amanda. Her voice carried across Gate C-17 the way announcements do, designed to be heard, designed to make someone small. The man she addressed didn't flinch. Dark navy suit, carry-on that looked like it knew first-class carpets, late 30s, maybe early 40s. He checked the boarding pass on his phone, then looked up with the same unbothered calm he'd used to check the time. "I'm Group 1, he said. "Just waiting my turn." Amanda squeezed her tablet tighter. "Group 1 is a specific queue, that queue." She pointed to a ropied lane with 5 people in it. 2 executives in polos, a couple in matching travel hoodies, and a teenager in Beats headphones. The man stood between the ropes and the carpet, not actually blocking anyone. "Got it," he said, and took a single step to the right. "Sir," Amanda's smile failed. "The sign says elite priority only. Do you see the word elite on your ticket?" A few heads turned. Phones tilted up. That word, elite, hung in the air. The man's gaze flicked to the sign, then back to her. "I see first," he replied. Amanda laughed, just loud enough for the little audience she'd gathered. "First doesn't always mean elite. There are tiers." He didn't respond. Silence can be a choice, and he chose it. Across the seating area, a teenage girl whispered to her mom, "Why's she like gatekeeping?" The mom shushed her. A business traveler in a blue blazer watched, thumb hovering over his camera app. Amanda shifted to performance mode. "Sir, do you fly with us often?" Emphasis on us. "Fairly often," he said. "Then you know the drill. Please join the correct line so our actual elites can board smoothly." A chuckle somewhere. The business traveler looked uncomfortable. The couple in hoodies pretended not to hear. The man opened his wallet app and held up the screen. "Seat 1A, non-stop to JFK." Amanda didn't glance at it. "That's nice. The line is over there." He stepped into the rope lane without another word. Amanda turned to a coworker at the scanner, a younger attendant with kind eyes named Jess. "Keep an eye on that one," she said, not even bothering to whisper. "We've had people upgrade themselves lately." Jess's eyebrows pinched. "We can scan his pass, that's—" "Just keep an eye," Amanda said, eyes still on the man like he was a smudge on glass. The board flashed. "Now boarding, elites, 1K, Group 1. People rose a little too fast, the way we all do when the door opens to something better. Jess started scanning, beep beep beep, a rhythm that moves a line like a metronome. When the man reached the scanner, he offered his phone to Jess. Amanda leaned in, ready. "Beep! Green! Welcome aboard!" Jess smiled. "Enjoy your flight, Mr. Carter." Amanda's smile twitched. "Which seat?" 1A, Jess said. Amanda pivoted toward Mr. Carter. "Carry-on size check." She grabbed the hard-sided bag before he answered, forcing it into the metal sizer. It slid in and out without resistance. Perfect fit. She yanked it back out anyway. "Tag says gate checked only. This tag is for strollers. Did you put this on yourself?" He glanced at the tag. "That must be from a previous segment. I didn't put it on." "Remove it then," she said, holding the bag as if it might bite. He reached for the tag. Amanda pulled the bag away. "I'll remove it." She tugged, struggled with the adhesive, then handed it back like giving a dog a treat. "Do not block the galley. Do not place personal items in crew storage. And please, don't touch the champagne before takeoff. It's for elite pre-departure only." The couple in hoodies exchanged a look. The business traveler finally lifted his phone and hit record. Mr. Carter's voice was still even. "Understood." He walked down the jet bridge without looking back. Amanda exhaled, satisfied. "Some people," she said to Jess, "they think a suit makes them someone." Jess scanned the next passenger. "Hey, that was unnecessary." "Company standards are not unnecessary," Amanda said. "If we're not strict, we get chaos. Being respectful isn't chaos." Amanda looked past her. "Focus on the line, Jess." Inside the aircraft, the air shifted from terminal chill to the warm hush of first class. Soft jazz, the kind of lighting that makes everyone feel like a better version of themselves. Mr. Carter slid his bag into the overhead above 1A without a nudge. He sat, buckled, placed his phone on airplane mode. The lead flight attendant in the cabin, Miles, approached. Older, calm, with the walk of someone who's seen every kind of passenger and kept his soul anyway. "May I offer you water, sparkling, or champagne?" Water's fine, thanks. Miles studied him for a beat, like he recognized a face on a billboard he couldn't place. Of course. He returned with still water and a linen-wrapped coaster. We're on a tight departure. If you need anything at all. Appreciate it, Mr. Carter said. 2 more first-class passengers arrived. Amanda stepped into the cabin behind them, scanning the layout like a manager counting chairs. Her eyes landed on Mr. Carter. There you are, she said, voice sweet but acid. Quick reminder, we don't store passenger items in the crew closet. I noticed your garment bag near the bulkhead. Mr. Carter looked at the overhead above his seat. The garment bag hung there, exactly where he'd put it. It's not in the crew closet. Amanda's smile went flat. Just making sure you're aware. Miles slid into the space between them. Everything's in compliance, he told Amanda, gentle but firm. We're set for pushback. Amanda lowered her voice. We need standards. He was disruptive at the gate. Miles's eyes flicked to 1A, then back to Amanda. We need discretion. She stared at him, then at Mr. Carter, then forced a professional nod. Fine. She left. Miles leaned toward 1A. Apologies, he said quietly. We'll take good care of you. It's okay, Mr. Carter said. I'm here to get from A to B. Understood. Miles started to move, then paused. Do you work in aviation? A beat. You could say that. Miles's eyes narrowed, curious, but he let it go. Cabin for departure, he said into his mic. The doors closed. Taxi, pause, the gentle hum that tells your bones you're about to leave the ground. As the plane turned onto the runway, a man in 2C coughed deliberately. Hey, are we getting pre-departure champagne or just vibes? Laughter rippled. Amanda reappeared with a tray of flutes. She set one on 2C's armrest, another in 2A, then stopped at 1A, hovering just long enough to be noticed. Water only, she said. Policy. Miles, 2 rows back, stiffened. Mr. Carter met Amanda's eyes, said nothing, didn't touch the water. The wheels rolled, the engines rose, the cabin pressed into the sky. 10 minutes later, climb complete, seatbelt sign still on, Amanda returned with her tablet and a clipped tone. Mr. Carter, we've had a complaint about your behavior at the gate. He blinked. From whom? From staff. We take these things seriously. Miles arrived beside her. Amanda, she lifted a hand. As the shift lead at the gate, I'm authorized to document incidents. Please confirm your full name. He waited, measured, then spoke softly, each word like a card laid on felt. My full name is Malcolm Carter, Amanda typed. And your employer? He held her gaze. You really want that now? It's part of the report, Miles whispered. Amanda. Mr. Carter reached into his jacket and removed a sleek black card. No bank logo, just a silver monogram and 4 letters embossed under it. The kind executives recognize before they read them. He placed the card on the tray table, calmly, like putting a bishop in the center of a chessboard. Amanda glanced down, froze, read it again. Her throat worked. The card said, Malcolm Carter, chairman and owner. The airline's name you're flying on. The cabin went silent. 2C's champagne flute stopped halfway to his mouth. Miles blinked, understanding at last. Mr. Carter's voice stayed quiet, almost gentle. You were saying something about elite and policy? Amanda didn't answer. He folded his hands. Great, then let's talk about both. Silence spread like a wave through the first-class cabin. The hum of the engines was the only sound, steady and indifferent, as every pair of eyes turned toward the man in 1A. Amanda's tablet hung loosely at her side, her knuckles pale. The crispness in her uniform suddenly felt like a costume that didn't fit. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Miles, the senior attendant, leaned forward, scanning the card once, twice, as if to confirm it wasn't a trick. His voice dropped to a respectful register. Mr. Carter, Chairman Carter, I didn't realize. Malcolm Carter raised a hand, cutting him off gently. It's just Malcolm right now. I'm a passenger on this flight, like everyone else. But, he glanced at Amanda, his tone sharpening, I think we need to discuss how passengers are treated when they don't happen to own the airline. The businessman in 2C, still holding his champagne, whistled under his breath. Oh boy, this is about to get good. Amanda snapped her tablet shut. Sir, I mean, Mr. Carter, this was a misunderstanding. Procedures are strict and sometimes Malcolm's gaze didn't waver. Procedures didn't tell you to humiliate me at the gate. Procedures didn't tell you to laugh when I presented my boarding pass. And procedures didn't tell you to publicly deny me service while pouring champagne for everyone else. Jess, the younger attendant from the gate, peeked through the curtain from coach, wide-eyed. She'd heard rumors spreading back through the plane already. Passengers in row 10 were whispering, "The guy in 1A owns the airline." Miles cleared his throat, voice steady but firm. "Amanda, let's step into the galley for a moment." But Malcolm shook his head. "No, leave the curtain open. Everyone saw what happened. Everyone should hear what's said next." Gasps fluttered through the cabin. Phones appeared. Discreet, yes, but everyone knew this was being recorded. Amanda's face flushed. "Mr. Carter, I was enforcing standards." "Standards," Malcolm repeated softly. "That word means something different to me. Standards mean safety, dignity, trust. To you, it meant mocking a man you assumed didn't belong. Tell me," he tilted his head, "would you have treated me the same way if I weren't black?" The silence turned heavier. Even the businessman in 2C set his champagne down. Amanda stammered, That's not, I didn't." "You didn't think," Malcolm said, his voice calm but slicing. "You assumed. And in your assumption, you humiliated a paying passenger in front of strangers. That isn't standards. That's prejudice wearing a name tag." Miles stepped in, placing a steady hand on the back of Amanda's arm. "That's enough. Amanda, return to the galley. I'll handle first class from here." Amanda hesitated, but the eyes around her burned hotter than the engines outside. She turned sharply, storming toward the curtain, but not before Malcolm's voice caught her again. "Remember something," he said, his tone low but carrying. "Every person who steps onto this plane is our boss. They buy the ticket. They trust us with their lives. You looked at me and saw someone beneath you. That's not how this airline was built, and it won't be how it runs while I own it." Amanda froze for a second, shoulders tight, then pushed through the curtain without a word. The cabin exhaled collectively, tension spilling into murmurs. Phones tilted down, fingers flying across screens. Tweets and TikToks were already spreading. CEO humiliated by his own attendant, then turns the tables. Miles leaned toward Malcolm, voice softer. "Mr. Carter, on behalf of the crew, I sincerely apologize. What you endured was wrong." Malcolm's tone eased, though his eyes still burned with steel. "I know, Miles. I've flown with you before. You treat people right. You understand the oath behind this uniform." Miles nodded once, grateful. Jess poked her head through again, hesitant. "Mr. Carter, just wanted to say, I'm sorry too. I saw how you were treated at the gate. I should have spoken up sooner." Malcolm offered her a small, genuine smile. "You're speaking up now. That matters." For the next hour, the flight ran smooth, but the energy in the cabin was electric. Passengers whispered, recorded, speculated. In coach, rumors flew faster than the drink carts. "The guy in first owns the airline." Some passengers craned their necks when walking to the lavatory, hoping to catch a glimpse. Malcolm remained composed, sipping his water, scrolling his tablet, but every so often, his eyes flicked to the curtain Amanda had disappeared behind. Finally, Miles approached again, crouching at his seat. "Mr. Carter, Amanda's requesting to speak with you privately." Malcolm shook his head. "No. If she wants to apologize, she does it where she humiliated me, in front of witnesses, not behind a curtain." Miles hesitated, then nodded. "Understood." Minutes later, Amanda emerged, pale and stiff. She stood at the front of the cabin, facing Malcolm, facing the passengers. For the first time all day, her voice trembled. "Mr. Carter, Malcolm, I want to apologize. I was wrong. I judged you, I embarrassed you, and I disrespected you. It wasn't policy. It wasn't professional. It was me, and it was unacceptable." She swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." The silence that followed wasn't judgment. It was weight. Passengers held their breath, waiting. Malcolm studied her, then nodded once. "Acknowledging it is the first step. Living differently is the second. For your sake and for the sake of every passenger you'll ever serve, I hope you take that second step." Amanda's eyes dropped. "I will." She retreated quickly, vanishing behind the curtain once more. The plane hummed on, engines steady, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But everyone in the cabin knew different. Phones buzzed, screens lit up. Stories were already spreading across social media, headlines practically writing themselves. Flight attendant shames passenger, turns out he's the owner. Miles leaned down once more. Mr. Carter, when we land, the press will be waiting. Do you want security? Malcolm smiled faintly, eyes on the clouds outside. No, Miles, let them come. If the world needs to hear about standards, I'll give them my definition. The descent began smoothly, but the atmosphere in the cabin was anything but ordinary. Passengers refreshed their social feeds, watching the clip from first class bounce between Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram in real time. The footage of Amanda sneering about elites, followed by Malcolm laying down his card, was already viral. In row 10, a college kid whispered, "Dude, this has like 200,000 views already." His friend leaned closer. "He's the CEO? No way!" Meanwhile, Malcolm sat steady in 1A, gazing out at the quilt of lights below, calm as ever. Yet his calm wasn't silence, it was weight. Every passenger in that cabin felt it. Miles came by, adjusting his tie. "Mr. Carter, we'll be on the ground in 20. Security teams are aware of the situation. Press is waiting at the gate." Malcolm nodded. "Good, they'll want answers." Jess, peeking in from the curtain, looked nervous. "Sir, do you want me to walk you off the plane?" Malcolm gave her a gentle smile. "I appreciate it, but I think the best thing you can do is keep doing your job. Show people what respect looks like." Her cheeks flushed. She nodded quickly. "Yes, sir." As the plane rolled onto the tarmac, phones lit up with notifications. News outlets had already picked up the story. Airline owner confronts disrespect in his own cabin. Passenger turned CEO, viral showdown at 30,000 feet. Amanda, hidden in the galley, pressed her hands to her temples. She had heard the whispers. She knew this was already out of her control. The plane taxied to the gate. The seatbelt light dinged. Miles lifted the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to JFK. Local time is 7:42 p.m. Please remain seated as we arrive at the gate." The usual rustle of seatbelts unbuckling began anyway, but this time it carried an edge of anticipation. People wanted to see what would happen next. Malcolm stayed seated until the jet bridge attached with a hiss. Then he rose, buttoning his jacket, collecting his bag with quiet composure. The businessman in 2C leaned toward him. "Mr. Carter, that was something else. Never seen anyone stay that calm under fire." Malcolm offered a nod. "Calm is the only way you see the whole board." The doors opened. The cabin flooded with the glow of camera flashes. Reporters crowded the jet bridge, microphones extended like spears. "Mr. Carter, is it true you were humiliated by your own staff? Do you plan to fire the attendant? Does this reflect larger problems in your airline?" The questions came rapid fire, desperate for a quote. Malcolm paused at the threshold, looking back at the passengers behind him. Some held phones. Some gave small nods of respect. Others simply stared, waiting for him to speak. He turned to the press, voice steady, projecting without force. "Yes, I was humiliated. Not as the owner of this airline, but as a passenger. A paying customer who expected dignity. What happened wasn't policy, it wasn't standard, it was prejudice. And prejudice has no seat on my planes." Cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters leaned closer. "What will you do, Mr. Carter?" one shouted. He lifted his chin. "First, I will make sure no passenger is ever treated as less than human on my airline. Not first class, not coach, not standby. Second, I will sit down with every staff member, from the top down, to redefine what standards mean. Standards don't mean elitism. They mean safety, respect, and trust. That's how I built this company, and that's how it will run." Passengers spilled out behind him, nodding, some even clapping. Miles and Jess stood in the doorway, listening, eyes shining with pride. Amanda emerged reluctantly, her uniform suddenly feeling like a spotlight. A reporter spotted her. "Are you the attendant who mocked Mr. Carter?" Her face drained of color. She ducked her head, hurrying past, but the cameras caught everything. Malcolm didn't look at her. Instead, he faced the press once more. "I'll say one last thing. I may own this airline, but every person who buys a ticket owns a piece of it too. They trust us with their lives at 30,000 feet. That trust is sacred. If we fail that, we fail everything." The crowd erupted in questions again, but Malcolm raised a hand. "That's all for now. Thank you." Outside the terminal, black SUVs waited. Security urged him forward, but passengers still lingered, snapping photos, whispering about what they had just witnessed. A teenage boy in a hoodie called out, "Mr. Carter, thank you for standing up." Malcolm paused, smiled faintly, and gave the boy a nod. "We all have to stand. Every time." Then he stepped into the SUV, the door closing behind him. Back at the taproom of headlines, social media, the clip had already been viewed over 2 million times. Comments flooded in. "Legendary composure. This is how you handle racism, with dignity and facts." Imagine humiliating your own boss without knowing it. Amanda's name trended too, but not kindly. Screenshots of her sneering face at the gate circulated with captions like, "Elites only? Turns out he's more elite than you." In the SUV, Malcolm leaned back, eyes on the blur of city lights. Bear, the security chief who had worked with him for years, sat across. "You know this is going to explode, right?" Bear said. "Press, public, shareholders. Everyone's going to want your next move." Malcolm nodded once. "Then we give them the right one. Not revenge, change." Bear tilted his head. "You really think change sticks?" Malcolm looked out the window, voice quiet but firm. "It does when you make it the standard." 2 days later, the glass tower of the airline's headquarters gleamed under the morning sun. News trucks parked outside, their satellite dishes pointed skyward. Employees filed in quietly, whispering about the viral video that had turned their company into a global headline. Inside the top-floor boardroom, a dozen executives sat stiffly around a long mahogany table, suits perfectly pressed, expressions carefully neutral. But behind the neutrality lurked fear. Fear of scandal, fear of shareholders, fear of their chairman's wrath. The double doors opened. Malcolm Carter walked in with a steady stride, a slim leather folder under one arm. He didn't raise his voice, didn't slam the folder down. He didn't need to. The weight of his presence carried enough. "Good morning," he said simply, taking the head of the table. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," the board echoed, voices uneven. He scanned their faces. "You've all seen the video?" Nods all around, some cleared throats. One executive tried a nervous smile. It's been a PR storm, but also an opportunity, Chairman. Public sympathy is on our side. Many customers say they're impressed with how calmly you handled it." Malcolm leaned back. "I wasn't calm for show. I was calm because I've seen storms before. And storms reveal cracks." The room stiffened. "The crack here," Malcolm continued, "is culture. Somewhere along the way, we let arrogance masquerade as standards. We let gatekeepers believe that belittling customers was part of their job. That ends now." A senior VP raised a cautious hand. "Mr. Carter, Amanda has already been suspended. HR is conducting—" "This isn't about one attendant," Malcolm cut in, voice firm. "If we blame one person, we miss the truth. Culture doesn't fail because of one storm. It fails because the roots were weak long before." Silence. Executives shifted uncomfortably. Malcolm opened his folder and slid a sheet across the table. Bold letters at the top read, "Respect First Initiative." "This is our new standard," he said. "Every employee, from executives to attendants, will undergo dignity and respect training. Not a one-hour webinar, not a box to check. A real program. Interactive, practical, mandatory." Another VP frowned. "With respect, Mr. Carter, this could be costly." Rolling out company-wide training, Malcolm's eyes hardened. "Costly? Do you know what costs more? Lawsuits, boycotts, lost trust. Customers will forgive a delayed flight. They will not forgive humiliation. If you think respect is expensive, try arrogance." The VP wilted. Malcolm tapped the page. "Second, we're launching an anonymous reporting system. If a passenger feels mistreated, they can file a complaint directly with my office. Not buried in customer service queues, not ignored, straight to leadership." One executive swallowed. "Straight to you?" "Yes," Malcolm said. "Because accountability doesn't trickle, it starts at the top." The board shifted, realizing this wasn't just a speech, this was a mandate. A younger executive leaned forward, cautious but curious. "Mr. Carter, if I may, what do you hope this achieves?" Malcolm's gaze softened slightly. "I built this airline on the idea that the sky should feel safe, that when you step on board, you're treated like someone whose life matters, because it does. Somewhere along the way, that got lost in upgrades, loyalty tiers, and champagne glasses. We forgot the human being sitting in the seats." He paused, letting the words hang. "This isn't about image, it's about roots. If our culture doesn't grow deeper, storms like this will keep tearing us apart. The room was silent, the weight undeniable. Finally, one of the oldest board members, a man who had been with the airline since its early days, cleared his throat. Henry Carter, your father, used to say the same thing. Every passenger is family, every flight is a promise. Somewhere, we strayed. Perhaps it's time we return. Malcolm nodded once, grateful. Exactly. He closed his folder. You have 1 week to implement the Respect First plan. If anyone here thinks they can't support it, stand up now and resign. No shame in leaving, but no space for resistance either. No one moved. Malcolm rose, cane tapping once against the floor. Then let's get to work. After the meeting, he walked through the open floor offices. Employees paused, whispering. Some applauded quietly. A young woman in customer service stood up, tears in her eyes. Mr. Carter, thank you. My mom's been a flight attendant for 20 years. She always said respect was dying in the skies. You brought it back. Malcolm smiled faintly. Your mom's right. Now let's make sure it lives again. Outside, cameras waited. As reporters swarmed. Mr. Carter, what changes will you make? Is this a one-off or a company-wide shift? Will Amanda be fired? He raised a hand, calm as always. This isn't about one attendant, it's about every passenger. We're launching a company-wide Respect First initiative. Every flyer will know, when you step on our planes, you'll be treated with dignity. That's the new standard. Cheers erupted from employees watching from the windows above. The headline wrote itself, Airline CEO turns viral scandal into nationwide change. That night, Malcolm sat alone in his study, tea steaming beside him. The city buzzed beyond the glass, but he focused on the quiet hum of the clock. Bear stepped in, dropping a thick stack of printed headlines on the desk. You did it. The press is eating it up. Customers are flooding the site with praise. Malcolm smiled faintly, weary but steady. Good. But this isn't about headlines, Bear. It's about roots. And roots don't grow overnight. We ride this road steady. Bear grinned. That's why you're the man for it. Malcolm looked out at the night sky. Planes crisscrossed the stars, tiny streaks of light carrying thousands of lives, lives that deserved respect, dignity, and trust. And under his watch, they would get it. Amanda sat in the HR conference room, her uniform jacket draped over the back of a chair. The polished table reflected her pale face. Across from her, 2 managers and a representative from Human Resources sifted through folders. The silence stretched like turbulence before a drop. Finally, the HR lead, a composed woman named Carla, folded her hands. Amanda, you know why you're here. Amanda nodded stiffly. Because of the incident. Not just the incident, Carla corrected. The culture it revealed. We've reviewed the footage. We've heard statements from passengers, gate staff, and fellow crew members. Now we need to hear from you. Amanda's throat felt dry. I was enforcing standards. Carla arched an eyebrow. Standards that required you to laugh at a passenger? Standards that meant denying him service others received? Or standards that let you belittle someone because you assumed they didn't belong? Amanda flinched. I didn't know he was the CEO. That's exactly the point, Carla said sharply. He shouldn't have needed to be the CEO to deserve respect. The words struck harder than any headline. For the first time in days, Amanda looked down at her hands, realizing how hollow her defense sounded. Meanwhile, in another wing of the building, Malcolm Carter held a different meeting, this time with frontline staff, attendants, mechanics, call center workers. No boardroom gloss, no suits, just the people who kept planes flying and passengers moving. He stood without a podium, sleeves rolled, voice carrying plain truth. I know the past week's been rough, he began. You've seen the clips, you've read the comments, but I need you to understand something. This isn't about one mistake. This is about who we are when no cameras are rolling. A mechanic raised a hand. Mr. Carter, we've been saying for years that passengers were treated like cattle at the gate. No one listened. Maybe now? Malcolm nodded. Now we listen. From today, respect isn't optional. It's policy. More than that, it's culture. And you are the roots of that culture. A flight attendant spoke next, voice trembling. Sometimes passengers are harsh with us, rude, even cruel. How do we balance standing strong without becoming like them? Malcolm met her eyes. You can enforce rules without stripping dignity. You can say no without making someone less. That's the difference between authority and arrogance. And that's where we'll train, practice, and improve." The room hummed with quiet agreement. For the first time, many felt like their voices mattered. Back in HR, Amanda sat rigid. Carla leaned forward. "Do you understand the gravity now?" Amanda nodded slowly. "Yes, I was wrong. Not just because he was the CEO, because he was a person. I let arrogance masquerade as standards." Carla studied her. "The company is giving you a choice. You can resign today, quietly. Or you can stay and commit to the Respect First program, but staying means accountability, public accountability. Are you willing?" Amanda hesitated. Images of her sneering face splashed across the internet burned in her mind. Quitting would be easier, quiet, but the weight of her choices pressed harder. "I'll stay," she said finally. "I need to face what I did. I need to change." Carla nodded once, then prove it. The Respect First program launched within a week. Training rooms filled with staff. Scenarios played out. Mock gate encounters, difficult passengers, high-stress delays. Employees practiced responding firmly but with dignity. Roleplay wasn't comfortable, but it exposed truths. In one session, Amanda stood opposite Jess, the younger attendant. Jess played the difficult passenger, while Amanda had to enforce rules respectfully. Jess tested her. "I'm sitting here whether you like it or not." Amanda inhaled, steady. "Sir, I understand you want to sit there, but for safety reasons, this seat is reserved. I'll help you find the right spot. Thank you for working with me." The trainer clapped. "Better, respectful, clear. That's growth." Amanda felt heat rise to her cheeks, but not from shame this time, from something closer to hope. Malcolm observed some sessions quietly from the back. He watched attendants stumble, practice, improve. He watched Amanda struggle, then adjust, then slowly learn. After one session, he approached her. She stiffened, guilt still heavy in her chest. "Mr. Carter, Malcolm raised a hand. "Don't apologize again. Do better again. Every time." She nodded firmly. Outside the training rooms, passengers noticed the shift almost immediately. Boarding lines ran smoother. Attendants spoke firmer but kinder. Social media began buzzing again, but this time with praise. One viral post read, "Flew with Malcolm Carter's Airline today. Staff treated everyone like VIPs, even in coach. Culture shift is real." Shareholders noticed too. Stocks rose. Trust rebuilt itself brick by brick. Late one night, Malcolm sat in his office overlooking the runway lights. Bear dropped a folder of reports on the desk. "Respect. First sessions are hitting 92% approval. Complaints are down 40% in just 1 week." Malcolm sipped his tea. "Good, but numbers aren't the end. Culture is a long road." Bear chuckled. "Still, this road's looking steadier than last week's storm." Malcolm allowed himself a rare smile. "That's because roots are finally growing again." The training rooms had been full of practice scenarios, controlled settings, and gentle corrections. But the real test came 30,000 feet above the earth, where there were no second takes and no trainers calling pause. Amanda fastened her uniform jacket and adjusted her scarf. It was her first flight back since the scandal. Her hands trembled slightly as she loaded trays into the galley. Passengers filed in, some sneaking glances, whispering. A few clearly recognized her from the viral video. Shame prickled her skin, but she held her chin steady. Jess, her coworker, gave her a supportive smile. "You've got this." Amanda whispered back, "I hope so." The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Welcome aboard Flight 212, nonstop to Denver. Expected smooth ride, clear skies. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your flight." The seatbelt sign clicked off after takeoff. Drinks began flowing, carts rolling down the aisles. Amanda forced herself to smile, to speak with warmth, to listen. Every thank you from a passenger felt like a small victory. Then, in row 14, a man slumped sideways, his drink spilling onto the floor. "Sir," his wife cried out, "help! He's not breathing!" Panic spread like fire. Passengers craned their necks, voices rising. Someone shouted, "Call for a doctor!" Another yelled, "What's happening?" Jess froze for half a second, then sprinted toward the row. Amanda followed, heart hammering. "Ma'am, step back," Amanda said firmly but calmly. She checked the man, mid-50s, face pale, lips bluish, no pulse. Training snapped into place. "We need the AED," Amanda barked. Jess dashed back for the defibrillator. Amanda tilted the man back, began chest compressions. 1, 2, 3. Her arms moved steady, voice strong. "Call for medical clearance," she shouted to another attendant. Passengers watched in stunned silence as the woman once vilified online pumped life back into a stranger's chest. Jess returned, handing over the AED. Amanda tore open the man's shirt, placed the pads. "Clear!" she yelled. The shock pulsed. The man's body jerked. "Pulse?" Jess asked, breathless. Amanda shook her head. "Keep going." She resumed compressions, sweat dripping down her temples. Minutes dragged like hours. Finally, gasp, a weak breath. The man coughed, chest heaving. His wife sobbed in relief. Amanda leaned back, chest burning, eyes wet. "He's back. He's stable for now." Applause broke out across the cabin, hesitant at first, then swelling. Passengers clapped, some with tears, some recording the moment that would soon sweep across the internet. Jess grinned at Amanda, voice shaking. "You did it." Amanda exhaled. "No, we did it. The training did it. Respect did it." When the plane landed in Denver, paramedics boarded immediately, wheeling the passenger off to the hospital. His wife hugged Amanda fiercely, whispering, "You saved his life. Thank you." Amanda blinked back tears. "Just doing my job, ma'am." As the cabin emptied, whispers followed. "That's her, the one from the video. But she saved him. She saved him." News traveled fast. By the time Amanda reached her hotel, clips of her compressions were already viral. But this time the captions were different. From scandal to savior, flight attendant redeems herself. The same woman everyone mocked just saved a life at 30,000 feet. Comments poured in. "People can change. This proves it." Respect first isn't just words, it's action. "She deserves a second chance." Amanda scrolled, tears falling freely. For the first time in weeks, the weight on her chest felt lighter. The next morning, Malcolm Carter called her directly. She answered, voice trembling. "Mr. Carter." "Malcolm," he corrected gently. "I saw the footage. You kept calm. You saved a life. That's what standards look like." Amanda swallowed hard. "I don't deserve praise after what I did before." Malcolm's tone was steady. "You don't erase the past. You build on it. What matters is what you did when the storm came again, and you stood steady." Silence. Then Amanda whispered, "Thank you for giving me another chance." "It wasn't me," Malcolm said. "It was you choosing to take it." Later that week, the man Amanda saved, David Harrison, sent a public message from the hospital. Gray-haired, hooked to monitors but smiling, he spoke into the camera. "This woman gave me back my life. Don't tell me people can't change. She proved otherwise." The message went viral, doubling the momentum of the Respect First campaign. Employees felt renewed pride. Passengers spoke with new trust. The airline's reputation soared higher than its stock ever could. Amanda returned to work with her head held higher, no longer hiding from whispers. Some passengers still recognized her, still murmured. But now their words carried something different. Not scorn, but respect. And as she rolled a cart down the aisle one quiet afternoon, a little girl in row 7 smiled up at her and said, "You're the lady who saved that man, right?" Amanda crouched to the girl's eye level, smiling softly. "I tried my best, sweetie, and sometimes that's all it takes." The girl nodded solemnly. "That's what heroes do." Amanda's throat tightened. She stood, heart steadier than it had been in months, and whispered to herself, "Heroes, or maybe just roots that finally held." The boardroom looked different this time. No tense silence, no executives fidgeting under the weight of scandal. Instead, a quiet hum of anticipation filled the space. Screens at the far end looped the video of Amanda performing CPR mid-flight. The clip had dominated the news cycle for 3 days straight. Malcolm Carter stood at the head of the table once again. His posture was steady, his voice calm, but this time there was a hint of satisfaction in his tone. "You've all seen the footage," he began. "The same employee who humiliated me in front of the world chose differently when the storm came again. She saved a man's life, and in doing so, showed what our culture is meant to be." Executives nodded, some more eagerly than others. Malcolm continued, "This is proof that change is possible, proof that roots grow deeper when we tend to them, and proof that our Respect First initiative isn't a PR stunt, it's working." One VP leaned forward. "Sir, social sentiment is up nearly 70%. Passengers are posting stories of better treatment. Even unions are applauding the culture shift. Another added, shareholders are relieved. Stocks rose 6% this week alone. Malcolm raised a hand. I don't care about the stocks. I care about the people. If we fix the roots, the fruit follows. But if we chase the fruit and ignore the roots, the whole tree collapses. The room fell quiet, the metaphor sinking in. Meanwhile, Amanda sat alone in the employee lounge downstairs, scrolling through comments on her phone. From villain to hero, what a turnaround. She proved change is possible. Respect. I'd want her on my flight any day. Her chest tightened. Just weeks ago, the internet had torn her apart. Now, strangers praised her. But she didn't feel like a hero, just someone who had been forced to confront her worst self and decide whether to stay there. Jess slid into the chair across from her, holding 2 coffees. Thought you could use one? Amanda managed a small smile. Thanks. Jess studied her. You okay? Amanda exhaled. I don't know. I'm grateful. But I also feel like one good act doesn't erase what I did. Jess shook her head. It's not about erasing, it's about proving. You're proving you can be different, that's enough. Amanda's eyes stung. I hope so. Later that afternoon, Malcolm visited the lounge unannounced. Conversations froze, cups clinked to silence. Amanda rose quickly, nerves spiking. Mr. Carter, Malcolm cut her off gently. I came to say something to everyone, not just you. He turned to the gathered attendants. This company doesn't expect perfection. We expect effort. Effort to treat people with dignity, effort to choose respect even when it's hard. Amanda showed that effort can save lives. That's the standard now. Not arrogance, not elitism, but steady respect. Applause rippled through the lounge. Amanda lowered her gaze, tears threatening again, but this time they carried relief. That night, Malcolm appeared on a major evening news program. The anchor leaned forward, voice sharp. Mr. Carter, how do you respond to critics who say the Respect First initiative is just image management after a scandal? Malcolm smiled faintly. Respect First isn't an image. It's a root. You saw what happened on that plane. A life was saved because someone chose dignity over pride. That wasn't for the cameras, it was instinct. And instinct grows from culture. The anchor pressed. So, you're saying this is sustainable? I'm saying it must be, Malcolm replied firmly, because without it, we're just another airline selling seats. And I didn't build this company to sell seats. I built it to carry lives. The segment aired nationally. Overnight, hashtags like #RespectFirst and #CarterStandard trended across social media. Weeks passed. Reports flowed in. Fewer passenger complaints, smoother boarding, more positive reviews. Employees felt prouder to wear the uniform. Even union leaders admitted the change was real. One morning, Malcolm received a handwritten letter delivered to his office. The return address, Denver. Inside, shaky handwriting sprawled across the page. Dear Mr. Carter, my name is David Harrison, the man Amanda saved on Flight 212. I wanted you to know I'm recovering well. More than that, I wanted to thank you for not firing her. You gave her a chance to redeem herself, and because of that, I'm alive to hug my grandchildren. Your decision saved more than me. It saved a family. Gratefully, David. Malcolm set the letter down, eyes closing briefly. This was why he fought. Not for shareholders, not for headlines, for families like David's, for lives carried safely home. At the next board meeting, Malcolm read the letter aloud. The executives listened in silence, some wiping their eyes. When he finished, he folded the page and spoke simply. This is our return on investment. Not stock prices, not PR. Lives. That's why we're here. That's why we'll keep riding steady. The board rose to their feet, applauding, not out of obligation, but conviction. That evening, as planes crossed the night sky like silver streaks, Amanda walked down the jet bridge after another uneventful flight. Passengers thanked her warmly, some even shaking her hand. At the end of the line, a little boy tugged his mother's sleeve. Mom, is she the lady who saved the man? His mom smiled. Yes, honey. The boy looked up at Amanda with wide eyes. You're a hero. Amanda knelt, her voice soft. Not a hero, just someone trying to do better. The boy grinned. That's what heroes are. Amanda's throat tightened, but she smiled back. For the first time in a long time, she believed maybe he was right. The Respect First initiative was spreading fast. Posters filled break rooms, slogans scrolled across training slides, and employees quoted Malcolm Carter's words in crew lounges. But progress always came with pressure, and the first true test arrived on a stormy Thursday evening at Chicago O'Hare. Flight 904 to Dallas was oversold. Passengers crowded the gate, some tapping feet, others pacing. The storm outside delayed boarding, and tempers frayed. Amanda stood at the counter with Jess, both running the operation. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience," Amanda said over the mic, voice steady. "We'll begin boarding as soon as the crew completes final checks." From the crowd, a man in a tailored gray suit sneered. "Patience? I paid for first class. I've been waiting an hour. This is pathetic." His voice carried, drawing murmurs. A woman with 2 kids nodded in frustration. A college student rolled his eyes. Amanda felt heat rise but kept her tone calm. "Sir, I understand the frustration. Weather delays are outside our control, but we'll get everyone on board safely as soon as possible." The man stepped closer, jabbing a finger. "Don't give me that script. I know how this works. You'll bump someone, and it won't be me." His eyes darted to a young black mother standing nearby, holding her toddler. "It'll be her." The crowd froze. The mother stiffened, clutching her child tighter. Amanda's chest tightened. The old her, the one from the viral video, would have stayed silent or let arrogance answer, but training rushed through her veins now. "Sir," Amanda said firmly, "every passenger here has equal value. No one will be treated differently because of who they are. I'll make sure of it." Phones lifted instantly. Passengers recorded, sensing another viral moment. The man scoffed. "You expect me to believe that?" Amanda met his eyes, voice unwavering. "Yes, because respect isn't optional here. It's policy. And if that's not good enough for you, I'll be happy to involve security." The crowd murmured approval. The young mother's eyes glistened. The man clenched his jaw, muttered under his breath, and stormed off toward the bar. Jess whispered, "You nailed it." Amanda exhaled shakily. "That was harder than CPR." Meanwhile, on the 40th floor of the headquarters, Malcolm Carter's phone buzzed. Bear, his longtime security chief, handed it over. "You'll want to see this." Malcolm clicked the link. A fresh video. Amanda standing tall at the gate, shutting down prejudice in real time. Within an hour, it had 500,000 views, captions like, "She learned, she really learned." Respect? First isn't just talk. Look at this. Malcolm leaned back, silent for a moment, then he smiled faintly. "The roots are holding." The next day, Malcolm called Amanda into his office. She entered nervously, expecting reprimand. Instead, he gestured toward the chair opposite his desk. "You stood steady yesterday," he said. Amanda blinked. "You saw?" "The whole world saw," Malcolm replied. "And more importantly, they saw growth. They saw proof that dignity wins." Amanda's throat tightened. "I didn't think I had it in me." Malcolm leaned forward. "Growth is harder than heroics. Anyone can have one brave moment. Few can choose it twice. You chose it again. That's culture." Tears stung Amanda's eyes, but she nodded firmly. "I'll keep choosing it." "Good," Malcolm said, "because storms aren't done. They never are. But every time you stand steady, the roots grow deeper." That weekend, Malcolm convened a staff town hall streamed across the company. Thousands tuned in. Attendants, pilots, mechanics, call center reps. He stood in front of a simple backdrop. No podium, just a microphone. "You've seen what happened," he began. "Twice now, the same person who once failed chose differently." Amanda stood steady, and the world saw it. That's what respect first means. It's not about never failing, it's about choosing better when the storm comes again. The chat feed on the live stream exploded. "Proud to work here. This is what leadership looks like." Finally, someone gets it. Malcolm raised a hand. "But listen well. This isn't Amanda's story alone. This is yours. Every single one of you will face storms, angry passengers, long delays, unfair words. You can't control the storms, but you can control whether you stand steady." His voice sharpened. "And if you do, you'll change not just this company, but the skies themselves." Thunderous applause erupted in the live chat, emojis flooding the screen. That evening, Malcolm sat at his desk, city lights glowing below. Bear leaned against the doorway. "You know, boss, you could have fired Amanda after that first fiasco. No one would have blamed you." Malcolm sipped his tea, eyes on the skyline. "Anyone can fire, few can redeem. If roots can grow, you don't cut them down, you water them. Bear chuckled. Guess you watered the right one. Malcolm smiled faintly. Guess so. Across the country, passengers boarded flights with new expectations. Attendants greeted them warmly. Pilots spoke with more care. Even baggage handlers joked with families. It wasn't perfect, but something was shifting. Respect was becoming the new standard, and in every corner of the skies, the storm of arrogance gave way, slowly, steadily, to the roots of dignity. It was a Monday morning when the headlines broke. A rival airline, one that had long competed with Malcolm Carter's company for routes and prestige, was engulfed in scandal. Passenger humiliated, dragged from plane, caught on video. Rival carrier faces backlash after viral incident. The footage was brutal. Security guards yanked a middle-aged black professor from his seat while passengers screamed in protest. His glasses flew off, his lip bled, and his cries for dignity echoed across the cabin. The clip went viral within hours, sparking outrage far beyond aviation circles. Malcolm watched the video in his office, jaw tightening. Bear stood behind him, arms crossed. Looks familiar, doesn't it? Malcolm exhaled slowly. Familiar, but worse. They forgot the most basic truth. A passenger is never cargo. A passenger is a life. Bear nodded grimly. The press will call you soon. They'll want your take. Let them, Malcolm said. His eyes never left the screen. But we don't gloat. We don't dance on rival storms. We stand steady in our own roots. By noon, reporters swarmed the headquarters lobby. Microphones thrust forward, cameras rolling. Mr. Carter, how does your airline respond to what happened on Flight 379 with your competitor? Do you see this as an opportunity to take market share? Would this happen on your planes? Malcolm stepped before them, posture calm, words deliberate. What happened yesterday was tragic. No passenger deserves to be treated that way. And while I cannot speak for another airline, I can speak for ours. We will never drag a human being like cargo. Respect isn't a slogan here, it's standard. A reporter pressed. So you see this as a chance to prove your superiority? Malcolm's eyes sharpened. This isn't about superiority. This is about humanity. If the skies are unsafe anywhere, they're unsafe everywhere. We don't compete on cruelty. We compete on care. His words trended instantly. We don't compete on cruelty. We compete on care. In crew lounges across the country, Malcolm's staff watched the press conference on wall-mounted TVs. Pride swelled in their chests. Attendants exchanged nods. Mechanics leaned back in their chairs, grinning. Jess whispered to Amanda, "Did you hear that? He's defending dignity everywhere, not just here." Amanda nodded, voice quiet. That's leadership. Not for show, for real. Behind closed doors, however, the rival airline's leadership scrambled. Their CEO issued a half-hearted apology, blaming isolated misconduct. Shareholders panicked. Stock tumbled. By contrast, Malcolm's airline soared. Bookings surged as passengers voiced their trust in a company that valued them. Social media buzzed with comparisons. One drags you out, the other lifts you up. Flying with Carter's airline from now on, respect first is real. That evening, Malcolm convened his executives. This isn't the time for arrogance, he warned. We will gain passengers, yes, but we must gain them with humility. Every new flyer is not a victory, it's a trust. And trust is sacred. The executives nodded, scribbling notes. Use this moment, Malcolm continued, not to boast, but to reinforce. Every attendant, every pilot, every agent must know respect is our strongest engine. Keep flying steady. Meanwhile, Amanda found herself unexpectedly at the center of the storm again. News outlets requested interviews with her, calling her a symbol of change. She hesitated, unsure if she deserved the spotlight. Jess encouraged her. Amanda, people need to see it's possible, that someone can mess up, learn, and stand differently the next time. Amanda swallowed hard. I'll do it, but not for me, for the culture. Her interview aired nationally. She looked into the camera, voice steady. I failed once, the world saw it, but my company didn't throw me away. They gave me a chance to grow, and when the moment came again, I chose differently. Respect isn't just a word here, it's something we live. I'm proof of that. The clip exploded online. Hashtags like #RespectFirst in action trended alongside footage of the rival airline's scandal. The contrast was undeniable. Back at headquarters, Malcolm sat at his desk, watching Amanda's interview. Bear raised an eyebrow. She's owning it. Malcolm nodded slowly. She's proving what I've said all along. People aren't perfect. Culture isn't perfect, but growth is possible. And when growth becomes instinct, storms turn into proof. He leaned back, eyes on the city skyline. And proof builds trust deeper than any advertisement ever could. The next morning, Malcolm boarded one of his own flights unannounced. Passengers whispered, recognizing him. Attendants straightened nervously. He smiled at them, voice warm. Relax. I'm here as a passenger, not the chairman. Show me what respect first looks like when no one's watching. And as the plane lifted into the sky, Malcolm Carter knew the world was watching anyway, because storms would keep coming. But now, his airline's routes were ready. The Capitol dome gleamed under the midday sun, cameras swarming the marble steps. News anchors delivered live reports, their voices buzzing across every major network. Inside, the chamber was packed. Senators, journalists, and citizens crowded into seats, waiting for the man at the center of it all. Mr. Malcolm Carter, chairman and owner, the clerk announced. Malcolm entered calmly, his dark suit crisp, expression composed. Behind him, Bear walked with quiet vigilance, carrying a slim case of documents. The room erupted in camera flashes as Malcolm took his seat at the witness table. The committee chair, Senator Whitfield, leaned forward. Mr. Carter, thank you for joining us. You're here today because the American people have questions. Questions about passenger rights, respect, and the culture of air travel. After recent scandals, including one at a rival airline and the viral footage involving your own company, we need answers. Malcolm clasped his hands. I'm ready, Senator. The first question came sharp. Mr. Carter, do you believe airlines treat passengers with dignity? Malcolm didn't flinch. Not always, and that's the problem. Too often, passengers are seen as numbers on a manifest rather than lives entrusted to us. That's why I created Respect First, to remind my staff and myself that dignity isn't optional. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Reporters scribbled furiously. Senator Whitfield pressed on. And you believe this program can fix the industry? Malcolm leaned forward, voice steady. I believe it can fix the roots. Scandals don't come from one bad day. They come from weak roots, cultures that value speed and profit over humanity. Fix the roots and the fruit changes. A skeptical senator interjected. But isn't this just good branding? Your stock is up. Bookings are up. Respect First could be seen as a PR campaign more than a cultural revolution. Malcolm's eyes sharpened. Senator, PR doesn't bring a man back to life. Respect did. Ask David Harrison, who survived a cardiac arrest on one of our flights because an attendant, Amanda, chose differently than she once did. Ask the passengers at O'Hare who saw dignity enforced at the gate when prejudice reared its head. These aren't ads, they're actions. The chamber buzzed. Screens across the nation replayed his words within minutes. Another senator asked, what responsibility do airlines have to prevent discrimination specifically? We've heard countless stories. Racial profiling, humiliation, denial of service. Malcolm's voice grew firm. The responsibility is total. When passengers step onto our planes, they step into our care. Discrimination, whether at the gate, in the cabin, or anywhere in our system, is a betrayal of that trust. At my airline, we don't wait for lawsuits to teach us that. We train it, we enforce it, and we hold leaders accountable, starting with me. Applause broke out from the audience, quickly hushed by the gavel. After hours of testimony, the chair offered Malcolm a chance for closing remarks. The camera zoomed closer. He took a breath, gaze steady. Airlines don't just move people. We carry mothers to weddings, fathers to funerals, children to new beginnings. Every seat holds a story. Every boarding pass holds a life. If we forget that, we lose more than business, we lose our humanity. Respect First isn't just for my airline, it's for the industry, for the skies. Because if we can't treat each other with dignity at 30,000 feet, where can we? The room erupted. Applause, cheers, even senators nodding in agreement. That night, every major network replayed his testimony. Headlines read, Airline CEO turns hearing into movement. Malcolm Carter, respect is the new standard. Social media flooded with clips. The line, every seat holds a story, trended worldwide. Back at headquarters, Amanda and Jess watched the hearing on a break room TV. Jess grinned. He just changed the whole industry in one speech. Amanda whispered, almost to herself, and somehow, he gave us the chance to be part of it. In his office later, Malcolm sat with Bear, the lights of the Capitol still glowing in the distance. Bear smirked. You realize you're not just running an airline anymore, right? You're running a movement. Malcolm sipped his tea, voice calm. Movements fade if they're all talk. Ours has to be lived. Every flight, every seat, every life. Bear nodded. Then let's keep living it. Malcolm looked out the window as a plane soared overhead, lights blinking against the night sky. His voice was quiet but firm. We will. Because storms will keep coming, but our roots are ready. The morning after Malcolm's testimony, the world felt different. Newspapers carried his words on their front pages. Business magazines hailed his vision. But what surprised Malcolm most was the phone call from a hospital administrator in Chicago. Mr. Carter, the administrator said, voice warm, we watched your testimony. Hospitals face storms too. Staff overworked, patients overlooked, dignity forgotten. Your respect-first model. It's exactly what we need. Would you speak with our board? Malcolm paused, thoughtful. I run an airline, not a hospital. The administrator chuckled. Respect isn't confined to planes, sir. It's universal. Within a week, Malcolm's calendar was filled with requests. Universities wanted him to address faculty about bias in classrooms. Police departments asked for guidance on reform. Even corporate CEOs reached out, eager to understand how he'd turned scandal into movement. Bear dropped a stack of invitations on Malcolm's desk. You're the new prophet of respect, boss. Everyone wants a sermon. Malcolm smirked faintly. It's not a sermon if it has to be lived every day. Bear raised an eyebrow. Still, you sure about stepping outside aviation? That's a lot of storms to take on. Malcolm looked out at the runways below. Jets lifted into the sky, carrying thousands of lives. If the roots are real, they can grow anywhere. Back at airline headquarters, Amanda and Jess scrolled through their phones in the break room. Look at this, Jess said, showing a clip of a university professor quoting Malcolm's testimony to her students. They're teaching respect first in classrooms now. Amanda shook her head in disbelief. It's wild. I almost ruined this company, and now we're changing the world. Jess nudged her. Correction, you're proof people can change. That's part of why this works. Amanda smiled faintly. Maybe. Meanwhile, Malcolm attended a round table with leaders from other industries. The room was filled with uniforms, nurses, teachers, police chiefs, even a few soldiers in dress blues. The moderator turned to Malcolm. Mr. Carter, why do you think respect first has resonated beyond aviation? Malcolm leaned forward, hands clasped. Because disrespect is universal too. Whether you're at 30,000 feet or in an emergency room, people know what it feels like to be belittled, and they know what it feels like to be seen. Dignity doesn't require profit margins, it requires choice. The police chief beside him nodded slowly. We've been chasing policies for years. Maybe what we need is culture, not checklists. The nurse added, exactly. You can't legislate compassion, you have to live it. Malcolm looked around the room. Then let's live it together. Storms don't stop at borders, neither should respect. Applause rippled through the hall. The media, of course, took notice. Headlines flashed. Respect first expands beyond airlines. From planes to police stations, Carter's movement grows. Commentators debated whether one man could reshape entire industries. Critics dismissed it as idealistic branding, but Malcolm stayed unfazed. He told Bear one night, movements aren't measured in headlines, they're measured in lives. If even one nurse treats one patient differently tomorrow, that's proof enough. Bear grinned. That's a hell of a compass. Inside the airline, the ripple effect was immediate. Passengers booked tickets not just for destinations, but for the assurance of dignity. Employees wore their uniforms with renewed pride. Amanda found herself mentoring new attendants, reminding them of her own mistakes and growth. One afternoon, a trainee asked her nervously, "What if I mess up?" Amanda smiled gently. You will. We all do. What matters is what you choose next. Respect isn't about never failing. It's about never failing the same way twice. The trainee nodded, relief softening her face. Malcolm's influence reached even further when the president invited him to a White House summit on restoring trust in institutions. Seated alongside national leaders, Malcolm repeated his core truth. Every seat holds a story. Every life holds value. If we forget that, whether in a plane, a hospital, or a courtroom, we lose more than trust. We lose ourselves. The president shook his hand afterward. Mr. Carter, you've turned turbulence into a flight path. The country could use more of that. But Malcolm remained grounded. In a quiet moment with Bear, he admitted, this can't become about me. If it does, it dies when I do. It has to belong to everyone. Bear chuckled. So, you're saying you're planting seeds instead of writing headlines? Malcolm nodded. Exactly. Seeds outlive storms. That evening, as another plane roared overhead, Amanda scrolled through her feed again. A video of a nurse comforting a frightened child had gone viral, tagged with #RespectFirst. She smiled, whispering to herself, "It's working." And in homes, schools, hospitals, and courtrooms across the nation, people began to believe it too, because respect, once planted, had a way of growing beyond the skies. Every movement draws fire once it grows too large to ignore. For weeks, Malcolm Carter's Respect First initiative spread like wildfire, embraced by schools, hospitals, even police departments. But not everyone welcomed it. The backlash began with op-eds. Respect First, feel-good branding or real reform. Carter overreaches, airlines should fly, not preach. On talk shows, pundits scoffed. He's trying to be a moral compass. Airlines should focus on safety and profit, not social engineering. Competitors joined the chorus. Rival CEOs accused Carter of exploiting scandals to elevate his brand. "It's all PR," one sneered during a live interview. "The man's no prophet, he's a businessman." Malcolm read the headlines calmly, sipping his tea. Bear, however, paced in frustration. "They're tearing you down, boss. We knew it'd come, but still, this is nasty." Malcolm set his cup down gently. "If storms don't come, the roots don't grow. Let them test us." The real test arrived when shareholders demanded an emergency meeting. Inside the boardroom, the air was thick with tension. Some executives who had once cheered Respect First now looked uneasy. A senior investor, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, stood. "Mr. Carter, we've seen a rise in bookings, yes, but we've also seen criticism. The market questions whether you're running an airline or a social crusade. Where do you draw the line?" Malcolm leaned forward. "Respect isn't a crusade, it's a standard. If we lose sight of that, we lose trust. And without trust, planes don't fill and profits don't follow." Another investor pressed. "But is it sustainable? What if this becomes political? What if customers split along ideological lines?" Malcolm's voice sharpened. "Respect doesn't belong to one side of politics. It belongs to humanity. If treating people with dignity alienates anyone, then perhaps the problem isn't Respect First. It's the resistance to it." The room stirred, murmurs passing between rows. Outside, the press circled like hawks. Reporters pounced the moment Malcolm exited the building. "Mr. Carter, are you turning your airline into a political platform?" Critics say Respect First is just branding. What do you say to them? Do you fear backlash from shareholders? Malcolm faced the cameras, calm as ever. Respect First isn't politics. It isn't branding. It's survival. In the air, storms don't ask who you voted for. Emergencies don't check your net worth. At 30,000 feet, all that matters is trust, and trust is built on respect. If anyone calls that branding, so be it. I call it truth. His words hit screens within minutes. Social media lit up again, both praise and criticism. Legend. Finally, a CEO with a backbone. Overreaching. He should stick to flying. Amanda, watching from the crew lounge, clenched her fists. Jess glanced at her. "You okay?" Amanda sighed. "It's just, they don't see what he's done for us. They don't see how real it is." Jess nodded. "But we do. And the passengers do. That's what matters." The next storm came during a televised debate on national business ethics. Malcolm was invited, seated across from a rival CEO who despised him. The rival smirked for the cameras. "Mr. Carter, your so-called Respect First policy is naive. Airlines thrive on efficiency, not empathy. Every second wasted on feelings costs money." Malcolm's gaze was steady. Efficiency without respect is exploitation. It's short-term gain, long-term collapse. If you treat passengers as burdens, they'll leave you. If you treat staff as disposable, they'll fail you. Respect isn't wasted time. It's fuel for trust. The rival scoffed. "That's poetry, not business." Malcolm leaned slightly forward, voice firm. "Then perhaps business has forgotten it carries people, not cargo. If poetry reminds us of that, then poetry belongs in business." The audience erupted, applause drowning out the rival's smirk. Clips went viral before the debate ended. Still, the critics didn't stop. Editorials labeled him the preacher of the skies. Politicians grumbled about corporate activism. A hashtag surfaced, "Hat fly planes, not values." Bear slammed a laptop shut one evening, growling. They'll never stop, Malcolm. You give them roots and they scream about trees. How do you keep calm? Malcolm poured tea, sliding a cup toward his old friend. Because calm is the only way to see the board. They're loud, yes, but storms are always loud. Roots are always quiet, and roots outlast storms. Bear chuckled despite himself. You always gotta sound like a philosopher. Malcolm smiled faintly. I don't try. I just tell the truth. That same week, a letter arrived on Malcolm's desk, this time from a rival CEO. Not the loud critic, but another airline leader quietly struggling. Mr. Carter, I've mocked you publicly, but privately, I admire what you've done. Our crews are tired, our passengers angry. We need what you've built. Would you meet? Off the record. Malcolm folded the letter slowly, a quiet resolve in his chest. The storm had barked, but the roots had begun to sway others. That night, as planes streaked across the stars, Malcolm sat at his office window. He whispered to himself the words that had become his compass. Every seat holds a story. Every story deserves respect. And no amount of noise could uproot that truth. The cafe was small, tucked away in a quiet corner of Washington, D.C. Malcolm Carter arrived with Bear at his side, though Bear stayed by the door while Malcolm slid into a booth. He didn't often take secret meetings, but the letter from his rival CEO, Thomas Reed of Skyreach Airlines, had been too striking to ignore. Reed entered a few minutes later, trenchcoat damp from drizzle, eyes heavy with exhaustion. He wasn't the blustering showman Malcolm had seen on television. This Reed looked older, quieter, burdened. Malcolm, Reed said, sliding into the booth across from him, thank you for coming. Thomas, Malcolm replied, his voice calm but edged with curiosity. You asked, I listened. What do you want? Reed sighed, rubbing his temples. You've seen the headlines. My airline is a mess. Complaints piling up, lawsuits brewing, our employees are burnt out, and after your testimony in Congress, passengers compare us to you constantly. I can't compete with that. Malcolm folded his hands. Then don't compete. Change. Reed gave a bitter laugh. You make it sound simple, but my board doesn't believe in movements. They believe in numbers. If it doesn't show profit in the quarter, it dies. Malcolm's gaze was steady. Respect is profit, Thomas. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. People spend money where they trust. Right now, your passengers don't trust you. Reed looked down at his coffee. I know, that's why I wrote you. I mocked you on TV. I called you a preacher, but privately I admire you. You turned scandal into strength. I need to know how. Malcolm leaned back, considering. I didn't do it with ads or slogans. I did it with roots. I gave my staff permission to care, and then I held them accountable for it. People think respect first is branding. It isn't. It's culture, and culture is contagious. Reed's eyes lifted. Culture, contagious. He repeated the words softly, almost to himself. Malcolm leaned forward, voice low. But you have to believe it yourself. If you fake it, they'll smell it. Employees, passengers, the public, they know. You can't sell what you don't live. Reed nodded slowly. You're right. My staff doesn't trust leadership. Not really. And maybe that's why the whole system's collapsing. Malcolm offered no comfort, only truth. Roots grow where leaders plant them. You want change? Start planting. The conversation lasted hours. They spoke of crew fatigue, disrespectful gate policies, even how executives treated janitors in their offices. Reed admitted things Malcolm already suspected. Cost-cutting had become cruelty, efficiency had become exploitation. When Reed finally rose to leave, he extended a hand. I don't expect friendship, Malcolm, but I do hope for a map, even if I'm too late to follow it. Malcolm shook his hand firmly. It's never too late to plant roots. The storm just makes it harder, but harder isn't impossible. Reed nodded once, then slipped out into the rain. Back at headquarters, Bear raised an eyebrow when Malcolm recounted the meeting. So, you're mentoring your competition now? Bold move. Malcolm poured tea, his tone calm. If the skies are unsafe anywhere, they're unsafe everywhere. If another airline fails its passengers, the whole industry suffers. Helping him isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Bear smirked. Sounds like you're building more than an airline. You're building a brotherhood. Malcolm's lips curved faintly. Not a brotherhood, a standard. A week later, whispers emerged. Employees at Skyreach leaked memos of a new internal program, Project Renewal. Anonymous forums buzzed. He's copying Carter's respect first. Good. Maybe it'll save us. About time they listened. Critics laughed, calling it imitation, but Malcolm didn't. In a press briefing, a reporter asked, "Mr. Carter, how do you feel about Skyreach adopting similar reforms?" Malcolm's answer was simple. If passengers are treated with dignity, I don't care whose name is on the program. Respect doesn't need patents, it needs practice. The line spread quickly online, quoted as proof of his sincerity. Amanda, watching the briefing with Jess, whispered, "He means it. He really does." Jess nodded. "And that's why it's working, because it's not about him. It's about everyone." Amanda smiled faintly. "Even us." That night, Reed sent Malcolm a single text. "Roots are hard to plant in rocky soil, but we're trying, thank you." Malcolm read it, then set the phone down. He gazed out at the horizon where planes dotted the sky, lights blinking against the dark. Bear entered quietly. "What's on your mind?" Malcolm's voice was steady, almost a whisper. "The storm isn't just mine anymore, and maybe that's the point." He sipped his tea, calm as ever. "If the roots are spreading, the skies will hold." The boardroom lights glowed late into the night. Malcolm Carter sat at the head of the table, but this time the atmosphere wasn't filled with pride or applause. Instead, the room felt sharp, lined with whispers and folded arms. A senior executive, Martin Gaines, cleared his throat. "Mr. Carter, with all due respect, some of us are concerned. You've shared too much with our competitors. Advising Thomas Reed? Helping Skyreach launch their own initiative? That undermines our advantage." A few others nodded. Another voice joined in, sharper. "Respect first was supposed to differentiate us. But if every airline copies it, where's the value?" Investors ask the same thing. They want to know what makes us unique. Malcolm's gaze swept the table, calm but heavy. Respect isn't a brand to hoard. It's a standard to share. If the skies are unsafe anywhere, they're unsafe everywhere. I said this before. Did you not believe me? Martin's jaw tightened. "We believed you, but now passengers can't tell us apart. Skyreach is already marketing their so-called Project Renewal. They're stealing the story you built." Malcolm leaned forward, his voice steady. "If another airline treats passengers with dignity, that's not theft, that's victory. Our uniqueness isn't threatened, it's proven. Because we led first, and we will always lead deeper." The words landed, but resistance didn't vanish. In private corners, executives muttered. Some worried Malcolm's vision threatened profits. Others feared their CEO was drifting too far into ideals. Amanda overheard pieces of conversation in the cafeteria. "He's turning us into a charity. Carter's blinded by his movement." It stung her chest. She remembered the man who had given her a second chance, who had taught her that respect wasn't a weakness. Jess noticed her expression. "Ignore it. Some people panic when roots grow. They think it's weeds." Amanda whispered, "But what if they try to stop him?" Jess shook her head. "Then he'll stand steady. He always does." The storm broke a week later. A group of executives, including Martin, called for an emergency board session without Malcolm. Bear intercepted the message, storming into Malcolm's office with the printout. "They're plotting against you, boss," Bear growled. "They think you've given away too much. Some are talking replacement." Malcolm set down his tea, eyes calm. "Of course they are. Storms always test the roots." Bear slammed the paper onto the desk. "You're too calm about this. They could strip you of your position. This is betrayal from within." Malcolm's voice didn't rise. "Betrayal is loud. Truth is quiet. We'll meet them steady." The boardroom was tense when Malcolm entered the next day. Executives sat rigid, papers stacked, eyes guarded. Martin stood. "Mr. Carter, this company exists to create profit. Respect. First has been good for image, yes, but helping competitors, advising rivals, that risks our dominance. The board must ask, are you leading an airline or a crusade?" Murmurs of agreement followed. Malcolm waited for silence. Then he rose, cane tapping once against the floor. "This airline was never built on dominance," he said. "It was built on trust. My father taught me that every seat holds a story. If we forget that, we don't just lose uniqueness, we lose our soul." He stepped closer, eyes locking with Martin's. "You fear losing advantage. I fear losing humanity. And let me remind you, advantage without humanity is nothing but arrogance. And arrogance crashes faster than any plane." The room went still. A younger executive, timid but brave, spoke up. "Mr. Carter's right. I joined this company because of respect first. Passengers fly with us because of it." If Skyreach copies us, so be it. No one doubts who started this. We don't win by hoarding, we win by leading. Others shifted in their seats. The tide wavered. Martin pressed again. But what if shareholders demand change? Malcolm's voice grew sharper. Then they'll know. I don't lead for quarterly charts. I lead for long-term trust. If they want a puppet for numbers, they can strip my title today. But if they want a leader who keeps this company alive through storms, then they'll keep me. He let the silence hang. No one dared respond. After the meeting, Bear caught up with him in the hall. You risked it all in there. You basically told them to fire you. Malcolm's expression was calm. Better to stand steady in truth than bend for fear. If roots don't hold under pressure, they're not roots, they're weeds. Bear chuckled, though his eyes softened. You drive me crazy, Malcolm, but damn, you drive them crazier. That evening, Amanda sat on her balcony overlooking the city. Planes crossed the horizon, their lights tiny beacons in the night. She thought about the man who had changed her life, who stood in storms with calm no matter how fierce they roared. She whispered to herself, let them test him. The roots will hold. And far above, those blinking lights carried stories, thousands of them, safe under the watch of a man who refused to trade dignity for dominance. The shareholder hall was filled to the brim. Rows of investors, analysts, and reporters packed the space, their murmurs buzzing like static before a storm. At the front, the board sat elevated behind polished desks. Malcolm Carter walked calmly down the center aisle, Bear just a step behind him. The room quieted as he approached the podium. The chair of the board, Margaret Holloway, adjusted her glasses. Mr. Carter, this extraordinary meeting was called at the request of concerned shareholders. They question whether Respect First aligns with their fiduciary interests. Today you will answer. Malcolm nodded once. I understand. The first to speak was Martin Gaines, the executive who had led the whispers. He stood, voice sharp. Our profits rose in the short term, yes, but much of that is from publicity. What happens when every airline copies us? When Respect First is no longer unique, shareholders want guarantees, not philosophies. Murmurs of agreement spread. Malcolm's voice was calm. You want guarantees? Here is one. Arrogance destroys trust, and companies without trust die. Respect First is not a philosophy. It is survival. When storms hit, passengers don't choose the cheapest ticket. They choose the company they trust. That trust is our shield. That trust is our guarantee. A shareholder in the second row stood up, clutching a chart. But Mr. Carter, rivals are calling this naive. They argue you're prioritizing feelings over efficiency. Malcolm turned to the room. Efficiency without respect is exploitation. A plane that leaves on time but humiliates its passengers has already crashed in spirit. Respect First is not about feelings. It's about function. When employees feel valued, they perform better. When passengers feel safe, they fly more often. That is efficiency. That is profit. The shareholders sat, subdued. Then came the most difficult voice, Margaret herself. Mr. Carter, some here believe your leadership has become too centered on ideals. They fear you are using this company to push a personal crusade. The board must decide if your vision still aligns with our purpose. The room tensed. Cameras zoomed in. Bear stiffened behind Malcolm, ready for anything. Malcolm's eyes swept the hall. If this is about me, then remove me. But understand this. The world is watching. Passengers are watching. Employees are watching. They don't want a crusade. They want dignity. If you strip this company of that, you'll lose them. And no chart, no profit margin will save you. His voice grew sharper. You cannot sell tickets on arrogance. You cannot build loyalty on humiliation. If you want quick profits, fire me now. But if you want this airline to outlast storms, keep me and keep the roots steady. For a moment, silence. Then a young shareholder stood. She wore a plain suit, her voice trembling but clear. I invested here after my mother was humiliated by another airline. I wanted to put my money where change was happening. If you remove Mr. Carter, I will withdraw my shares. And I know I'm not alone. Applause broke out from sections of the hall. Reporters scribbled furiously. Another voice joined, an older man in the back. I've flown with this airline since the Respect First program began. I've seen the difference in staff, in treatment, in care. That's worth more than any quarterly bump. That's why I'm staying. The tide was shifting. Martin tried once more. But what if Respect First fails? What if passengers tire of it? Malcolm answered firmly, respect never fails. Arrogance fails. Cruelty fails. History has proven it. Respect first isn't a slogan, it's a compass. And as long as we follow it, we won't just survive, we'll lead. The board recessed briefly. Tension filled the air as reporters speculated. Amanda and Jess, watching live from the crew lounge, gripped each other's hands. "They can't take this from him," Jess whispered. "They won't," Amanda said, though her voice wavered. Minutes later, Margaret returned. She stood at the podium, eyes scanning the crowd. "The board has deliberated. By majority vote, Mr. Carter remains CEO and chairman. Respect first continues as company policy." The hall erupted. Applause, cheers, even chants of Malcolm's name. Martin sat pale, defeated. Reporters surged forward. Malcolm raised a hand for silence. "This is not about me. This is about us. About every passenger, every employee, every life we carry. Remember this. Roots grow quiet, but storms always reveal them. Today, we proved ours hold." That night, Malcolm stood at his office window, the city glittering below. Bear joined him, shaking his head with a grin. "You stared down your own board and walked out taller. You're either the bravest man I know, or the craziest." Malcolm sipped his tea, eyes steady on the horizon. Not brave, not crazy, just steady. He watched a plane ascend into the night sky, its lights blinking against the dark. Because when the storms come, steady is what saves you. The shareholder showdown had barely ended when the counterattacks began. Malcolm Carter's victory was splashed across headlines. Carter defies board, wins big. Respect first survives challenge. Employees celebrated. Pilots clapped as they passed Malcolm in the corridors. Attendants sent him handwritten notes. Amanda and Jess raised coffee cups in the break room, whispering, "He did it. He actually did it." But not everyone was cheering. At Skyreach headquarters, Thomas Reed's rival executives gathered in a dark-paneled conference room. Unlike Reed, who had begun to admire Carter's philosophy, these men saw danger in his success. One slammed his fist on the table. "Do you not see? Carter's airline is stealing market share by the week. Passengers demand respect now. If this continues, our old playbook dies." Another snarled, "Then we make him the problem. Take down Carter and the movement collapses with him." They plotted smear campaigns, whispered to journalists, even hired private investigators to dig for dirt. Respect first had to be painted as a facade, its leader a hypocrite. Malcolm wasn't surprised when the first wave hit. Is Carter's respect first just clever marketing? Anonymous sources claim CEO lives double life. None of it stuck, because there was no scandal to find. Malcolm's life was steady, his record clean, but the noise unsettled staff. Amanda overheard coworkers murmuring, "What if it's true? What if respect first is just spin?" That night, Jess found her staring at her phone. "Don't let it get to you. You know him better than headlines." Amanda nodded slowly. "I do, but the world doesn't, and that's what scares me." The rivals' most dangerous move came weeks later when they orchestrated a crisis mid-flight. On a route from Atlanta to New York, a staged passenger complaint escalated into chaos. Paid agitators accused attendants of bias, recording everything. The video, carefully edited, went viral within hours. Respect First Airline faces racism allegations, hypocrisy exposed? Malcolm watched the clip in his office, Bear standing behind him. Bear's fists clenched. "This reeks of setup. I can smell it." Malcolm nodded slowly. Storms don't always come from the sky. Sometimes they're thrown at you. He called for an internal review, refusing to hide. Transparency became his weapon. Within days, investigators confirmed the truth. The accusers were paid actors linked to a rival firm. When Malcolm held the press conference, he didn't gloat. His voice was calm, steady. This was an attack, yes, but it proved something bigger. Respect first is working. Why else would rivals fear it enough to fake storms? We won't be distracted. We will keep standing steady. The audience erupted in applause. Online support surged back, stronger than before. Inside Skyreach, Thomas Reed watched the fallout with unease. His executives, once confident, now looked cornered. "We tried to break him," one muttered bitterly, "and only made him stronger." Reed shook his head. "Because he's not building a brand. He's building roots. And roots don't scare easily." Back at Malcolm's airline, loyalty surged. Pilots volunteered for extra flights. Attendants wore their uniforms with renewed pride. Employees began using a new phrase quietly among themselves. "Fly steady." It became an inside motto, echoing Malcolm's own words. Amanda felt the shift firsthand. On one flight, a passenger leaned toward her and whispered, "I booked here because I trust you, because I trust your company." Amanda smiled, voice steady. "We won't let you down." But the rival strike wasn't without cost. Lawsuits were filed, investors unsettled, regulators demanded hearings. Malcolm faced sleepless nights, endless meetings. Bear urged him to slow down. "You can't fight every storm, Malcolm. Even captains need rest." Malcolm sipped his tea, eyes weary but steady. "Rest comes later. Right now the roots are still growing. If I step away, they wither." Bear muttered, "One day your calm is going to kill me." Malcolm's faint smile flickered. Better calm than chaos. At the next staff town hall, Malcolm addressed thousands of employees on live stream. His voice carried the same strength that had steadied them before. "They tried to break us with lies. They tried to shake us with noise, but storms cannot uproot what is steady. Respect first isn't theirs to define, it's ours to live. Every flight, every seat, every story." Employees rose to their feet across break rooms and hangars nationwide, clapping, cheering, some with tears in their eyes. That night, Amanda wrote in her journal, "I once doubted him. Now I know. Carter isn't just leading an airline. He's teaching us how to weather storms, with steady roots and steady hearts." And far above, the skies seemed to echo it. Planes traced lines of light across the darkness, carrying thousands of lives, steady, safe, unshaken. The invitation arrived in a sealed envelope, embossed with the crest of the International Aviation Council. Malcolm Carter opened it at his desk, Bear watching from across the room. "Summit in Geneva," Malcolm read aloud. "Keynote address on passenger rights and airline culture. They want me to present respect first to the world." Bear whistled low. "The whole globe, huh? You sure you want that spotlight? You'll have allies and enemies." Malcolm folded the letter neatly. Storms don't stop at borders, neither should roots. 2 weeks later, Geneva buzzed with energy. Delegates from dozens of nations filled the Palais des Nations, airline executives, regulators, union leaders, journalists, flags lined the Grand Hall, translation headsets buzzing with chatter. When Malcolm entered, whispers rippled across the room. Some faces brightened with admiration, others hardened with suspicion. His story had traveled far, and so had the controversies. On stage, the moderator introduced him. "Please welcome Malcolm Carter, chairman and owner, Carter Airlines. His Respect First initiative has sparked global debate." Applause rang, polite, cautious, curious. Malcolm stepped to the podium, posture calm, voice steady. He began simply. "Every seat holds a story." Heads tilted, translators repeating the words in French, Spanish, Mandarin. "I've carried children flying to see parents after divorce. Soldiers flying home in coffins, grandmothers terrified of turbulence, businessmen too proud to admit fear. Every seat holds a life, and if we treat them as cargo, we betray them." The hall was silent now. Even skeptics leaned forward. Respect first is not American. It is not corporate. It is human. At 30,000 feet, nationality, class, race, none of it matters. A storm hits and we're all the same. Respect is the only standard that holds. Applause swelled, stronger this time. But then came the questions. A European CEO rose, his accent clipped. "Mr. Carter, your initiative sounds noble, but airlines in Europe face razor-thin margins. Compassion slows efficiency. How do we survive if we prioritize feelings over speed?" Malcolm's reply was firm. "Efficiency without respect is collapse delayed. Passengers who feel humiliated don't return. Staff who feel disposable don't perform. Respect isn't a cost, it's an investment. Without it, you survive quarters. With it, you survive decades." Another delegate, a stern-faced man from Asia, pressed harder. "But what about culture differences? Respect looks different in different places. How do you enforce a universal standard?" Malcolm answered calmly. "Respect isn't about gestures. It's about dignity. Whether you bow, shake hands, or nod, the core is the same. You see the other as human, not lesser. That's universal." The hall buzzed with translation, nods of agreement spreading. During the break, journalists crowded him. "Mr. Carter, do you envision Respect First as a global code? Would you share it freely with rival airlines abroad?" Malcolm's reply echoed steady. "Yes, because skies belong to everyone. If respect ends at one border, then no one is safe. The quote hit headlines within hours. Respect has no borders. That evening, Malcolm dined with a group of airline staff from around the world, attendants from Brazil, mechanics from Germany, pilots from Japan. They shared stories of mistreatment, exhaustion, humiliation. One Brazilian attendant said quietly, "We've been told to smile, no matter how passengers treat us, but no one tells passengers to respect us back." A German mechanic added, "We keep planes safe, but leadership never sees us. We're invisible until something breaks." Malcolm listened intently. Respect first isn't just for passengers, it's for staff too. You can't carry dignity if you're denied it yourself. The group nodded, some visibly emotional. For them, his words weren't corporate, they were personal. The next day, Malcolm delivered his closing statement to the summit. His voice carried through the vast chamber. Respect is not charity, it is not luxury, it is survival. Airlines don't just sell seats, they carry lives. If we forget that, we crash in more ways than one. If you adopt respect first, not as a slogan but as a culture, your passengers will know, your staff will know, and the world will fly safer, steadier, stronger. Thunderous applause erupted, this time unreserved. Delegates stood. Some clapped reluctantly, but they clapped all the same. Back at his hotel, Bear grinned. "You just lit a fire across continents. Think they'll follow?" Malcolm poured tea, voice soft but sure. "Roots grow slow, but they grow." He looked out at Lake Geneva, calm under the moonlight. Today the world heard the truth. Whether they live, it is their choice, but the storm has begun, and the roots are ready. The Geneva summit had barely ended when the resistance sharpened its claws. Malcolm Carter's words, "Respect has no borders," were plastered across newspapers and screens. Admirers called him visionary, but rivals saw danger. In closed rooms, alliances formed. Executives from 3 major carriers, one European, one Middle Eastern, one Asian, met to scheme. If Carter's respect first spreads, the European CEO muttered, our old model dies. Staff will demand more. Passengers will expect more. Costs will skyrocket. The Middle Eastern executive leaned forward. Then we must bury him in doubt. Make his airline look hypocritical. Make his words look hollow. The Asian delegate nodded slowly. Sabotage his roots, and the tree falls. The first strike came through regulators. Suddenly, Malcolm's airline faced surprise inspections at multiple airports. Authorities cited vague safety concerns, grounding flights for hours. Passengers fumed. Social media buzzed. Respect first, but late again? Amanda and Jess scrambled to calm crowds at the gate. We're sorry for the delay, Amanda repeated, sweat lining her forehead. Safety checks are required. One man sneered, filming her. Respect first, huh? Where's the respect for my time? Jess whispered under her breath. This feels staged. Back at headquarters, Bear stormed into Malcolm's office, slamming down reports. 3 inspections in 1 week, all at foreign hubs? This isn't coincidence, it's sabotage. Malcolm stayed calm, scanning the papers. Storms always test the roots. We'll stay steady, Bear growled. Steady doesn't stop enemies from cutting our wings. Malcolm looked up, voice firm. But panic does. We'll answer with transparency. Show the world we have nothing to hide. Malcolm held a press briefing. Our planes passed every inspection. Our records remain clean. If rivals attempt to weaponize regulation, we welcome it, because truth is our ally. The more they test us, the stronger we prove. His calm cut through the noise. Media outlets replayed the line. The more they test us, the stronger we prove. Support rebounded, but the rivals weren't done. The second strike hit deeper. An anonymous leak. Documents surfaced online, claiming Carter Airlines cut corners on crew rest times. The leak spread like wildfire. Hashtags questioning whether respect first was just smoke. Amanda sat stunned in the crew lounge, staring at her phone. This isn't true, Jess frowned. Of course it isn't, but the world doesn't know that. Within hours, Malcolm convened a staff meeting, broadcast live to employees and press alike. He stood on stage, documents projected behind him. These leaks are lies, he said firmly. Here are the real records. He displayed crew schedules, safety logs, even testimony from union reps. Every fact dismantled the accusation. And let me be clear, Malcolm continued, voice sharp, if anyone inside this company had betrayed respect for profit, they'd be gone by now. But they haven't. Because respect first isn't a slogan here. It's lived. Applause erupted in the room. Reporters tweeted instantly. Carter dismantles smear with receipts, but the storm rattled employees. Amanda admitted to Jess later, even when it's false, it shakes people. You start to wonder, what if the next rumor sticks? Jess nodded slowly. That's what they want, to make us doubt, to make us afraid. Amanda clenched her jaw. Then we won't give them that. The final strike came more direct. At a global aviation forum in London, Malcolm was scheduled to speak. Rivals orchestrated a protest outside the venue. Signs read, "Respect first is PR first." Carter lies. Inside, some delegates whispered doubts. The atmosphere was tense when Malcolm walked on stage. He waited for silence, then spoke calmly. You've heard the rumors. You've seen the protests. Ask yourself, why do they fear respect first so much? Because it works. Because it threatens old ways built on arrogance and exploitation. You can believe the noise, or you can believe the proof. Safer flights, loyal employees, passengers who return not just for a seat, but for dignity. That is our record. That is our truth. The hall erupted in applause. Even skeptics couldn't deny the conviction in his voice. That night, Bear found Malcolm in his hotel room, staring at the London skyline. They'll keep coming, you know. They won't stop. Malcolm sipped his tea, calm as always. Of course, storms never stop, but neither do roots. Bear shook his head with a grin. You and your roots. One day you'll drive me insane. Malcolm smiled faintly. Maybe, but I'll drive them insane first. Amanda, watching the speech replay on her phone, whispered, They can throw everything at him. He won't bend. Jess nodded. Because steady doesn't break. And above, as another Carter Airlines jet traced its path across the night sky, passengers rested in quiet trust, proof that no storm, no sabotage could uproot what had already taken hold. The sabotage campaign had shaken the skies, but Malcolm Carter remained steady. His speeches reassured passengers, his transparency calmed regulators, and his conviction held his staff together. Yet Bear had a suspicion gnawing at him. Boss, Bear said one night in the office, tossing a file on the desk, the leaks weren't just rivals. Someone on the inside handed them the playbook. Malcolm glanced down at the papers. Internal memos, schedule drafts, even meeting minutes that only executives had access to. His voice stayed calm, though his eyes hardened. You're certain? Bear nodded. Positive. No outside group could have gotten this without help. Malcolm leaned back, exhaling. Then the storm isn't just outside. It's in our own cockpit. A week later, the board gathered again. Malcolm stood before them, papers in hand. Someone here, he began, voice firm but not raised, is feeding lies to our rivals. Not disagreements, not criticism, lies. This is betrayal. And betrayal corrodes trust faster than any scandal. The executives shifted uncomfortably. Martin Gaines smirked faintly, though he said nothing. Margaret Holloway, the chair, spoke carefully. Do you have evidence, Mr. Carter? Malcolm nodded. Not yet, but we will. And when we do, there will be no second chances. Respect first doesn't tolerate sabotage, from enemies or from within. His gaze swept the room, steady as stone. Silence followed. Meanwhile, Amanda and Jess noticed the tension trickling down to staff. Attendants whispered in break rooms, speculating about traitors. Jess muttered, It's one thing fighting rivals, but knowing someone in our own company's helping them, that cuts deep. Amanda nodded grimly. But Carter will find them. He always does. Roots don't grow in poison soil. Bear's investigation ran deep. He traced emails, phone records, financial trails. After days of sleepless work, he slammed a folder onto Malcolm's desk. It's Martin, Bear growled. He's been feeding Skyreach through a shell consultant. Payments, calls, everything lines up. Malcolm opened the folder, scanning the evidence quietly. He closed it slowly, his expression unchanged. Then we confront him. Not in secret, in front of everyone. The confrontation came during a full-staff town hall, streamed live. Thousands of employees tuned in, expecting updates about flights and morale. Instead, Malcolm stepped to the podium with Bear at his side and Martin sitting stiff in the front row. Respect first means transparency, Malcolm began. It means trust. And when that trust is broken, we don't whisper, we face it. Tonight, we must face betrayal. Gasps rippled across the hall. Employees leaned closer to their screens. An executive of this company, Malcolm continued, chose to undermine us, to feed rivals lies, to poison the roots we've planted. That executive is Martin Gaines. Martin shot to his feet. "This is outrageous. You can't accuse me like this in front of staff." Bear dropped the folder on the table, documents spilling out, emails, receipts, transcripts. The crowd buzzed, whispers swelling into a roar. Malcolm's voice cut through like steel. "We don't silence storms. We reveal them. And the truth is clear. Martin, you betrayed this company. You betrayed our passengers. You betrayed respect itself. Effective immediately, you are removed." Security escorted Martin out as cameras captured every step. Employees erupted in cheers and applause across lounges and terminals. Amanda whispered to Jess, "He did it. He pulled the poison out." Jess nodded, her eyes misty. "And he did it steady, always steady." Later, reporters swarmed Malcolm for comment. His answer was simple. Respect isn't fragile, but betrayal is loud. By removing it, we prove again that our roots hold. Trust doesn't end because of one traitor. It deepens when the truth is faced. The quote spread fast. Betrayal is loud. Trust is steady. That night, Bear sat across from Malcolm in the office, shaking his head. "You could have handled that quietly, saved embarrassment, but you aired it live. Why?" Malcolm poured tea, his voice soft. "Because storms don't stop when you hide them. They stop when you face them. If we ask staff for honesty, we must show it first." Bear chuckled wearily. "You know, one day your honesty's gonna kill me." Malcolm smiled faintly. "Better honesty than rot." Amanda, writing in her journal before bed, captured the moment in her own words. "Today we saw the storm inside us, and we saw Carter face it without fear. If respect is our root, then truth is the water that keeps it alive." And above the city, Carter Airlines jets cut through the night sky, steady, safe, unbroken. The fallout from Martin Gaines's exposure rippled across every corner of the company. For days, newspapers carried headlines. "Executive fired in live broadcast." "Carter Airlines faces betrayal but holds firm." "Respect first survives internal storm." Some investors fretted about instability, but passengers praised the transparency. Employees were stunned at first, but pride soon swelled. The company hadn't hidden the truth. It had faced it. Malcolm Carter knew, however, that the damage wasn't just external. Trust inside the company had cracked. Staff whispered, "If one of the top leaders betrayed us, who else could?" So Malcolm called for something unprecedented, a company-wide summit. Every attendant, pilot, mechanic, and manager was invited, in person or through livestream. The theme, Rebuilding Trust Together. On the morning of the summit, thousands filled the hangar-turned-hall. Mechanics still wearing coveralls sat beside sharply dressed attendants. Pilots lined the back rows, their uniforms crisp. Screens connected hubs worldwide. Malcolm stepped onto the stage, no teleprompter in sight, just him, a cane, and his calm presence. "Betrayal hurts," he began. His voice echoed across the hall. "It is loud. It makes us doubt. But betrayal is not the end. It is the test. And how we answer determines who we are." The room was silent, every eye fixed on him. Respect first was never about slogans. It was about roots. Roots don't break because of one storm. They grow deeper, stronger. That is what we will do now, together. Applause rolled across the hall, not thunderous but steady, like the heartbeat of a single body. After his address, Malcolm broke tradition. Instead of leaving the stage, he invited employees forward. "Speak," he said. "Tell me what you fear. Tell me what you need. This summit is not about speeches, it's about voices." One by one, they came. A young attendant, barely out of training, admitted, "I feared respect. First was just words, but when you fired Martin live, I knew it was real. Still, sometimes I worry we'll be punished for speaking up." Malcolm nodded, meeting her eyes. "You will never be punished for speaking truth, only for betraying it." A mechanic stood next, grease still on his hands. "We work long hours, boss. Respect means rest, too. Don't forget us on the ground." Malcolm's reply was firm. "You are not forgotten. Respect first starts with you. Planes don't fly without your hands. From today, crew rest schedules will be reviewed, not as numbers but as lives." The crowd erupted in cheers. For hours, voices poured out, fears, hopes, demands. Malcolm listened to every word, responding without pretense. Amanda, watching from the front row, whispered to Jess, This is different. He isn't just leading. He's letting us shape the roots." Jess nodded. "That's why it works. Because it's ours too. By the summit's end, a new energy filled the hangar. Employees didn't just feel heard, they felt part of something larger. Malcolm closed with words that would echo long after. Respect first doesn't live in my office, it lives in you. In every greeting at the gate, every wrench turned in the hangar, every decision in the cockpit, the world can test us, rivals can attack us, but as long as each of you carries it, no betrayal can uproot it. The applause this time thundered, shaking the rafters. News of the summit spread globally. Clips of Malcolm listening to staff went viral, a CEO not lecturing but learning. Headlines declared, "Carter restores trust with radical transparency." Respect first now employee-led. Critics grudgingly admitted it. The betrayal had backfired. Instead of breaking the company, it had strengthened it. That evening, Malcolm returned to his office, exhausted but calm. Bear leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You turned a storm into sunlight," Bear said. "How do you do it, boss? Every time they throw lightning, you grow taller." Malcolm poured tea, his hands steady. "Because storms don't scare roots, they prove them. Today, our people saw that for themselves." Bear smirked. "One day, you'll run out of metaphors about storms and roots." Malcolm's faint smile flickered. "Maybe, but not yet." Amanda, back in her apartment, scribbled in her journal. "Today wasn't about Carter, it was about us. He gave us the microphone and we found our voices. Respect first is no longer just his vision. It's ours. And that means no storm can take it away." Above the city, Carter Airlines jets climbed into the night sky, their lights steady against the dark. Passengers rested easy, unaware of the storms below. But those inside the company knew. The roots had been tested, the cracks healed, the trust restored. And in that quiet steadiness, the future felt unbreakable. The summit had restored trust inside Carter Airlines, but Malcolm knew storms never ended. They only shifted. A week later, Bear walked into his office carrying a thick dossier. His expression told the story before the words did. "They're coming from another angle now," Bear said, dropping the folder on Malcolm's desk. Malcolm opened it slowly. Headlines, petitions, talking points, all accusing him of overreach. "Carter Airlines is trying to run the world," one article declared. Another sneered, "Respect first is corporate brainwashing." Bear tapped the page. "This isn't random. Rivals are funding political groups to turn the public against you. They can't beat you with scandals, so now they're painting you as a tyrant." Malcolm leaned back in his chair, tea steaming quietly on the desk. His voice was calm. "If they fear respect this much, then respect is working." Meanwhile, Amanda and Jess saw the tension play out with passengers. On a flight to Dallas, a businessman boarded with a sneer. "Respect first?" he said loudly enough for others to hear. "What a joke. Just another gimmick to make us pay more." Amanda steadied her voice. "Sir, if you feel mistreated, tell me. Respect first is here for you." He scoffed, waving her off. But the passengers behind him shook their heads. One woman leaned toward Amanda and whispered, "Ignore him. We fly with you because of this. Don't let the noise get in your head." Amanda smiled faintly, gratitude warming her chest. At headquarters, Malcolm gathered his leadership team. "Our enemies are calling this brainwashing," he began. "So we will answer, not with defenses but with proof. Proof of lives changed." He outlined a plan. Collect real stories from employees and passengers, unedited, unpolished. Publish them as they were. Because no propaganda can compete with truth lived. The idea spread like wildfire. Within days, testimonials poured in. A single mother wrote about how Carter Airlines staff helped her when her son had a seizure mid-flight. A mechanic shared how Respect First had given him the courage to report safety issues without fear of reprisal. Amanda herself submitted her story, how she had once humiliated a passenger, and how Malcolm's second chance had transformed her into the leader she was today. The stories were released online under the banner, "Respect First, Voices, Not Slogans." The response stunned even Malcolm. Videos of passengers crying, staff hugging, lives saved, all trended worldwide. Hashtags like #RespectChanged. Me dominated social media. Critics sneered, but their voices were drowned by the wave of human truth. Rival campaigns struggled to paint Carter as a tyrant when thousands of ordinary people testified otherwise. Bear slapped a newspaper on Malcolm's desk one morning. The headline read, "Truth outsells smears." "Told you," Bear said with a grin. Malcolm only sipped his tea. "Roots don't grow louder, they grow deeper." But not all storms vanished. Regulators summoned Malcolm to testify once again, this time not about safety, but about influence. Some feared his movement was becoming too powerful. In the packed hearing room, a senator leaned forward. "Mr. Carter, your airline now inspires hospitals, schools, even government agencies. But some argue no company should wield this much cultural sway. How do you answer?" Malcolm's voice was steady. Respect first was never about power. It was about humanity. If hospitals choose dignity, it's not because of me. It's because they see it works. If schools adopt it, it's not because of my airline. It's because they want their students safe. Respect isn't mine to own. It's everyone's to live. The senator pressed. "But isn't this influence dangerous?" Malcolm shook his head gently. "Disrespect is dangerous. Arrogance is dangerous. Respect heals. If influence spreads healing, then I welcome it." The hearing room buzzed, cameras flashing. Clips of his testimony flooded the news cycle, once again turning doubt into admiration. Back in the crew lounge, Amanda scrolled through her phone, watching Malcolm's words replay. She whispered to Jess, "How does he always do it? Turn storms into sunlight?" Jess smirked. "Because he's steady, and steady always wins." Amanda nodded slowly. "And maybe because it's not just him anymore. It's us too." That evening, Malcolm stood at his office window, Bear beside him. The city glowed below, planes tracing steady lines into the horizon. "They'll keep coming," Bear muttered. "New storms, new angles." Malcolm set his teacup down, gaze fixed on the skies. "Good. Storms prove the roots, and every storm makes them deeper." He turned to Bear, his expression calm as ever. "We're not just flying planes anymore, my friend. We're flying proof. The respect." First stories had silenced critics for a time, but rivals weren't finished. They gathered in back rooms, desperate to crush Malcolm Carter's momentum before it reshaped the entire aviation industry. "This man is untouchable at home," one European executive growled. "His people worship him. If we want to break him, we must do it abroad." And so they hatched a plan, a fabricated international scandal designed to make Carter appear hypocritical beyond America's borders. It began with a leak to a foreign paper. The headline screamed across the front page, "Carter Airlines accused of mistreating African workers in foreign hubs." The article described horrific conditions, long hours, poor pay, disregard for safety. None of it was true, but photos, doctored and staged, accompanied the claims. Within hours, the story spread online, amplified by bots and rival-funded accounts. Amanda saw the headline during a layover in Chicago. Her stomach dropped. "This can't be real," she whispered. Jess leaned over her shoulder, eyes narrowing. "It's fake. I know it, but passengers will see this and doubt." And they did. At boarding gates, Amanda heard whispers. "Hypocrites, so much for respect first." At headquarters, Bear slammed the newspaper on Malcolm's desk. "They're framing us, boss. I traced the photos. They're doctored. But the damage is already spreading." Malcolm scanned the article, his expression calm, though his eyes carried the weight of the storm. "Storms are always loud at the start," he murmured. Bear's jaw tightened. "What's the move?" Malcolm poured tea slowly, as if grounding himself. "Truth. Always truth. We go to the source." The next day, Malcolm boarded a flight himself. Destination, Lagos, Nigeria. Cameras followed as he walked through the airport, reporters shouting questions. "Mr. Carter, did your airline exploit African workers? Are these conditions real? Is respect first just a mask?" Malcolm stopped, turning to face them. His voice was steady. "If there is injustice under my name, I will see it with my own eyes. And if it is false, the world will see that too." Respect doesn't hide. It confronts. The clip dominated headlines worldwide. Carter flies to Nigeria to face allegations head-on. In Lagos, workers gathered nervously as Malcolm walked into the hangar. He shook hands with mechanics, attendants, cleaners, every staff member looking each in the eye. "Tell me the truth," he said quietly. "If these accusations are real, I want to hear it from you." One mechanic, sweat still on his brow, spoke up. "Sir, the story is a lie. We have fair pay. We have rest. Your Respect First program reached us too. We are proud to work here." Another attendant nodded fiercely. "They used actors and staged photos. We've seen the pictures. They're not even from this airport." Malcolm listened, heart steady, then addressed the cameras waiting outside. "You've heard it from the people themselves. These lies were crafted to divide us, to discredit respect. But respect doesn't bend to lies. It shines brighter because of them. Back in America, Amanda and Jess watched the live stream on their phones. Amanda's eyes misted. He went himself. He didn't send lawyers or PR. He went. Jess whispered, "That's why passengers trust him, because he shows up." But rivals didn't stop. They pushed the false narrative harder, paying influencers to question his motives. "Of course they'll deny it," one commentator sneered on a talk show. "Who's going to speak against their boss with cameras rolling?" The smear spread further, and Malcolm knew words alone wouldn't suffice. He convened a press conference in Lagos, but this time he didn't stand alone. Workers joined him on stage, mechanics, attendants, cleaners. They spoke in their own voices, unscripted, raw. One mechanic said firmly, "I am not an actor. I am not a puppet. I am Carter Airlines, and I am respected." The crowd erupted in applause. Reporters scrambled to capture every word. The narrative began to shift. By the time Malcolm returned to the U.S., the tide had turned. Investigations revealed doctored photos, traced payments, and rival involvement. The fabricated scandal collapsed under its own weight. Still, the experience left scars. Bear found Malcolm in his office, staring out the window. "They'll never quit, will they?" Bear muttered. Malcolm sipped his tea, voice calm but resolute. "Of course not. Storms never quit, but neither do roots. And today, our roots spread deeper, across oceans." Bear smirked faintly. "You and your roots. But you're right, they tried to bury us, and we just grew." Amanda wrote in her journal that night, "They threw lies at him. He answered with truth. They tried to divide us. He made us stronger. Respect isn't just a company policy anymore. It's a shield. And no storm can pierce it." Above, Carter Airlines jets crossed the Atlantic, their lights steady in the dark. Passengers leaned back in their seats, unaware of the storm below, carried safely by an airline that refused to bend to lies. The fabricated scandal had collapsed, but something unexpected rose in its place. Malcolm Carter's visit to Nigeria had gone viral, not just for proving his airline's innocence, but for what it symbolized. Leaders from hospitals, schools, and even police departments reached out with the same question. Could respect first work here too? One evening, Malcolm sat in his office with Bear, Amanda, and Jess present. He held a thick folder stuffed with letters and invitations. "A university in Chicago wants to implement Respect First in their classrooms," he said. "A hospital in Boston wants it in their ER. Even a police department in Seattle is asking for training." Amanda's eyes widened. "That's huge, but can it even work outside aviation?" Bear leaned forward, skeptical. "Boss, you've already painted a target on your back. If you stretch this movement too thin, rivals won't just come at you with scandals. They'll try to destroy you in every arena." Malcolm stirred his tea slowly, the steam curling upward like smoke from a steady fire. Storms test roots, but roots aren't confined to one field. Respect First isn't about airlines, it's about humanity. If people want it, we can share it. The first experiment happened quietly. Malcolm visited the Boston hospital that had written to him. In a crowded ER, he listened to nurses speak of exhaustion, doctors of frustration, patients of neglect. "Respect First isn't about slowing you down," Malcolm told them. "It's about reminding each other that behind every chart, every bed, every uniform, there's a story." A nurse wiped her eyes. "If that's true, then maybe we can breathe again." The pilot program began, and within weeks, patients reported feeling more cared for. Staff morale improved. Local papers wrote glowing articles. "Carter's Respect First heals hospitals." Back at the airline, employees watched with pride. Jess said to Amanda, "Can you believe this? We're attendants, but our culture is inspiring hospitals now." Amanda smiled softly. "It makes sense. We were passengers once too. We know what it feels like to be unseen." But with growth came backlash. On a late-night talk show, a pundit sneered, "Malcolm Carter is no longer running an airline. He's building a cult. Respect First in classrooms? Police? Hospitals? What's next? The government?" Clips of the segment spread quickly. Bear stormed into Malcolm's office the next morning. "They're calling you a cult leader now. I told you this would happen." Malcolm looked out the window at the planes lined on the runway. His voice was steady. "When storms get louder, it means the roots are spreading. Let them shout. We'll keep planting." To counter the noise, Malcolm did something radical. He opened the doors of Carter Airlines HQ for a public forum. Not just employees, citizens, teachers, nurses, students, anyone curious. The auditorium overflowed. People shared their stories. A teacher whose students respected each other more after adopting the principles. A nurse who said her burnout lifted when she felt seen. A police officer who admitted he treated people differently after hearing Carter speak. One young man stood up, tears in his eyes. "I used to think no one saw me, but Respect First made me realize I mattered. And because I mattered, I started seeing others too. You didn't just change my flight, you changed my life." The crowd gave him a standing ovation. Media outlets couldn't ignore it. Headlines flipped again. Respect First goes beyond airlines. From planes to classrooms, Carter's culture of dignity expands. Critics tried to twist it, but their words were drowned by the sheer volume of testimonies. The movement had become bigger than Malcolm. Still, he remained cautious. Late at night, he confided in Bear. "This was never about empire. If it becomes about me, it will die with me. It has to belong to everyone." Bear shook his head with a grin. "You sound like a preacher, boss, but I get it. You're planting trees you'll never sit under." Malcolm's faint smile flickered. "That's the only way they'll outlast the storm." Amanda, journaling again after a long day, wrote, "Today I realized respect first isn't just about flights, it's about life. People don't remember how fast we flew. They remember how we treated them. And if Carter's roots spread, maybe the world really can change." Above the city, Carter Airlines jets climbed through the night, lights steady against the dark. Passengers sipped drinks, read books, held hands. They didn't know their flight was part of something larger, but they felt it in every kind word, every steady gesture, every moment of dignity. Respect First had taken off beyond the skies. Respect First had grown far beyond Carter Airlines. Hospitals, schools, even community centers were adopting its principles. But growth drew predators. One autumn morning, Bear entered Malcolm Carter's office carrying another dossier. His tone was grim. "Boss, it's not just rivals anymore. Governments, corporations, they all want a piece of this. They're saying Respect First is too big for one man to control." Malcolm flipped through the folder. Letters from senators, CEOs, international councils, each dressed as flattery but carrying a demand: hand over Respect First, let it become a regulated trademark under collective ownership. "They think they can turn Roots into a brand," Bear muttered. Malcolm set the folder down calmly. "Respect isn't theirs to own, but if we refuse, they'll call us dictators of dignity." The tension boiled at the Global Leadership Forum in New York. Malcolm was invited as keynote, but when he arrived, he saw the trap. Banners read, "Respect First, Shared Future." Panelists whispered about Carter hoarding influence. On stage, a senator addressed him directly. "Mr. Carter, your program has touched millions, but movements this large cannot remain in the hands of a private company. Will you relinquish Respect First to global governance?" The hall buzzed. Reporters leaned forward. Malcolm gripped his cane, his voice calm but unshakable. "Respect First is not mine to surrender. It never was. You cannot trademark humanity. You cannot regulate dignity. Respect First belongs to everyone who lives it." The senator pressed. "Then why is your name attached to it?" Malcolm's gaze swept the hall. "Because someone had to plant the first root, but the soil belongs to us all." Applause erupted from some corners while others scowled. The battle lines were drawn. That night, Amanda and Jess watched the forum replay in the crew lounge. Jess shook her head. "They want to steal it, twist it into some bureaucratic slogan." Amanda's jaw tightened. "But he won't let them. He never bends." Jess's eyes softened. "Still, if the wrong people grab this, Respect First could die." The pressure mounted. Editorials accused Carter of being a monopolist of morality. Talk shows mocked him as CEO of feelings. Rivals promised their own respect programs, hollow imitations designed to undercut him. Bear growled at the headlines. "They're trying to drown you in noise, boss. Maybe it's time to fight fire with fire." But Malcolm shook his head, sipping tea. "Noise can't uproot truth. We won't fight with fire. We'll fight with roots." His plan was bold. He announced the creation of the Respect First Foundation, a nonprofit independent of Carter Airlines dedicated to spreading the principles globally. But instead of handing it to politicians or corporations, he structured it differently. "It will be employee-led," he declared at the launch. "Nurses, teachers, pilots, janitors, those who live respect every day will guide it. Not the powerful, not the profiteers, the people." The announcement stunned the world. Reporters scrambled. Headlines blared. "Carter refuses to sell out. Hands Respect First to the people." Support surged. Ordinary workers signed up by the thousands. Teachers recorded videos pledging to join. Nurses wore badges saying, "Respect first, respect always." The power play had backfired. By refusing to hoard or surrender to elites, Carter had placed respect first beyond the reach of corruption. But the fight wasn't over. Rival executives called emergency meetings, furious that their plan had been outmaneuvered. One snarled, "He's made it untouchable. If workers own it, no boardroom can control it." Another spat, "Then we go after Carter himself. If he falls, the foundation crumbles." Their eyes burned with vengeance. The storm wasn't done. Back at Carter Airlines, Amanda received a message from a nurse who had watched the foundation's launch. She read it aloud to Jess, her voice trembling. "Because of respect first, I no longer see my patients as cases. I see them as people, and it's changed everything." Jess smiled faintly. "That's it, isn't it? That's why it scares them. Because it works." Amanda nodded, tears in her eyes. "And because it's not just his anymore. It's ours." That evening, Bear found Malcolm standing at his office window gazing at the skyline. "You handed away your crown, boss. Most men would cling to it." Malcolm's voice was quiet but firm. "Crowns rust. Roots endure. If this lives without me, then we've already won." Bear shook his head, chuckling softly. "You'll never stop with those root metaphors." Malcolm smiled faintly. "That's because storms never stop, and neither do roots." Amanda's journal entry that night captured it best. "Today, Carter proved respect. First isn't his empire. It's our inheritance. The powerful tried to steal it, but he gave it to the people instead. Now no storm can take it away." And as Carter Airlines jets traced their paths across the night sky, lights steady against the dark, the movement below spread wider than ever. Steady, unbroken, and unstoppable. Winter winds swept through the city, rattling windows as Carter Airlines prepared for another day of flights. But inside headquarters, the tension was heavier than the skies. Bear walked briskly into Malcolm Carter's office, his face darker than usual. "They're coming for you personally, boss," Bear said, slamming a thick folder on the desk. "Not the airline, not the foundation, you. They've hired investigators digging for anything they can twist. They want to smear your family, your past, even your war record." Malcolm looked up from his tea, steady as ever. "Storms always target the tree, not the leaves." Bear shook his head. "This isn't just a storm, it's a hurricane. If they take you down, even if the foundation survives, respect first could lose its compass." The attacks began immediately. Talk shows accused Malcolm of being a fraud, claiming his military record was exaggerated. Anonymous blogs alleged he was siphoning money from the foundation. False witnesses appeared, selling stories to tabloids. Amanda and Jess watched the chaos unfold on their phones during a layover. Jess muttered, "They're trying to destroy him completely." Amanda's hands trembled. "We can't just watch. We have to stand with him. He stood for us when no one else did." And they weren't alone. Across the country, workers, teachers, nurses, and passengers began to rally. Hashtags surged. #Stand with Carter and #Respect First. Forever. Videos of people sharing their own stories flooded the internet. Passengers recalling how Carter Airlines treated them with dignity, employees speaking of second chances, families saved in moments of crisis. The movement had taken on a life of its own. What rivals intended as Carter's destruction became his proof. Still, the pressure mounted. A congressional hearing was called, demanding Malcolm testify under oath about his finances, his foundation, his past. Cameras filled the chamber as he stepped inside, Bear at his side. Reporters shouted, "Mr. Carter, did you falsify records? Mr. Carter, is respect first a scam?" Malcolm walked calmly to the witness table, adjusted the microphone, and began. "You've heard the noise," he said. "Accusations, rumors, lies. But storms don't scare roots, they reveal them. So let me be clear. I have nothing to hide. My records are open, my finances are transparent. Respect first is not mine to profit from. It belongs to the people who live it." A congressman sneered, "You expect us to believe you're not benefiting? That this isn't just branding for your airline?" Malcolm leaned forward, his voice sharp but calm. "If this were branding, I would have sold it years ago. If this were profit, I would have trademarked it. Instead, I gave it away. You call that weakness. I call it strength. Because you can own a slogan. You cannot own respect." The room went silent. Cameras flashed. Clips of the moment went viral within hours. Outside the hearing, crowds had gathered. Employees in uniforms, passengers holding signs, nurses in scrubs, students carrying banners. They chanted, "Respect first! Respect first!" The sound carried into the building, shaking the walls. Amanda and Jess stood among them, tears in their eyes. Jess whispered, "He's not alone anymore. He never will be." Amanda nodded, her voice steady, "Because the roots are ours now too." Days later, the investigation ended. Every accusation collapsed. Financial records clear, military record intact, foundation transparent. Rivals had nothing left. Their hurricane had passed, leaving Carter standing taller than ever. News outlets declared, "Carter vindicated. Respect first survives final test." The man who turned storms into roots. Back at headquarters, Bear finally let out a laugh. "You did it, boss. They threw everything they had. And you didn't just survive, you grew." Malcolm sipped his tea, his calm smile faint. "I didn't do it alone. Roots don't grow from one seed, they grow from many." He looked out the window at the planes lined on the runway, each one a symbol of the movement that had spread far beyond aviation. Respect first isn't mine anymore. It's the world's. And that's how it should be. That night, Amanda wrote her final journal entry on the saga. "He began as a man humiliated on a plane. Now, he is a symbol that respect is not weakness but power. They tried to silence him, but he taught us that storms don't end movements, they prove them. Respect first belongs to all of us now, and because of that, it can never be taken away." Above, Carter Airlines jets soared through the night, their lights steady against the dark. Passengers reclined in their seats, unaware of the battles fought on their behalf. But they felt it. In every kind word, every steady gesture, every moment of dignity, respect first had weathered its final storm, and in the quiet skies it lived on, stronger, deeper, unshakable.